phones, don't put it on silent. Switch it off, because when it rings whilst on silent, it's the same as when it's not on silent. And so far as the recordings of the proceedings are concerned, they get affected. Right, Comrade Minister, welcome. Welcome to yourself and the new Director General. I'm sure congratulations are still in order, because this is the first time we're meeting with you as the man in charge of Treasury. Once again, comrades, please switch off your cellular phone, because your phones have never disappointed. It will always ring if it's not switched off. So please, let's switch off our cellular phones. Comrade Minister, I think the way by way of starting, we'll request that we do introductions from your side as National Treasury, SETA, the police, the Auditor General, and then members of Parliament will introduce themselves so that we can then get into the business of this morning. We have every intention to have an early day, but if we're going to be longer here, it will be at the discretion of Treasury. If you want to keep us long, well, we'll be long, but if we keep it straight and simple, I think we'll have an early day and go and focus on other matters. So I'll hand over to you, Comrade Minister, and your officials to introduce yourselves so that we know who is here, and then we can then continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and the honorable members who are here. We welcome the opportunity to brief to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts on the IFMS, the Integrated Financial Management System, which was initiated in 2005 as a program to modernize government. As you know, the system was introduced in order to integrate.
Why don't we do a?
Yeah, no. I'm gonna do that. I'm not making any remarks. To integrate many transversal systems. So we are here to account on that. We know that the committee wants to ask us questions about it. So I'm here accompanied by the Director General, Mr. Dondo Mokgajane, and I will, with your permission, Chair, ask the members of the delegation to each one introduce themselves. Thank you very much. Starting with Dondo himself.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Dondo Mokgajane. I'm the Director General of the National Treasury.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Tuma Mahapi. I'm the CEO of SETA.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Rajan Naidu, SETA IFMS Program Manager.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Lindy Bordovic. I'm from the National Treasury.
Morning, honorable members. The name is Lesehos Perepere. I'm the head of internal audit in the National Treasury.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Octavia Matlo. I'm the chairperson of the Audit Committee of National Treasury.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Maliwala. I'm a parliamentary liaison officer.
Good morning. I'm Kollega Galega in the Finance Ministry.
Good morning, honorable members. My name is Jay Snai, and I'm the Acting Accountant General at the National Treasury.
Good morning, honourable members. My name is Dave Boucher. I'm from the Internal Audit Department at CETA.
Good morning. My name is Tadim Gomezulu. I'm the Deputy Director General at National Treasury and also CETA board member and chairman of their Procurement Committee. Thank you.
Good morning, honourable members. I'm Graham Victor. I'm chairman of the Audit Committee at CETA.
Good morning. I'm Rudzani Rasikinya, CFO of CETA.
Morning, members. My name is Rendani Museta. I'm from the Department of Telecommunication and Postal Services, shareholder rep for CETA.
Press. Yeah, well, maybe let's just talk with our voices. If you can raise your voice a bit. I mean, there is no sound. I can hardly hear you. Right, thank you. I hope this side the mics are working.
Good
No,
morning.
I said Auditor General. I hope they are there. You look like you're from Auditor General. Can you just introduce yourselves? All right, comrades, may we introduce ourselves.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Minister. It's Mnyamezeli Boy, member of the committee.
Dumelang, Lina Lakaken Tabisem Kuno, member ya committee.
Ndimachirone, Ketapelo Chilwani, Leloko la committee.
David Ross, member of the committee.
Yeah, I think you can come to this row. I think okay, no, that's fine. All right. Comrade Minister, you are correct. The integrated financial management system has been long in coming in government, from the decision taken in 2002 until where we are today. A lot of things have happened, but we're still on the journey to having that integrated system for payroll, human resource management, supply chain management, as well as financial management. In almost all instances, whenever we have engagements with departments and entities, we always have the Auditor General and National Treasurer as witnesses, so to speak, that assist the committee. Almost always, and I must thank National Treasury because at every sitting that we have, there is always somebody from National Treasury to come and assist the committee. That's why, Jace, I see there's some splattering of graying. It's been long. So it's National Treasury is always the side with us to assist our processes. But today it's a very strange and unusual setting where it's National Treasury that is, so to speak, on the dock. And it was important for us to have this engagement as quickly as possible, so that as we engage other departments, like tomorrow we're having SA Express, next week we're having this and that, we want National Treasury to be in our corner, you know. But for us to always refer to National Treasury and say, National Treasury, what do you say? What is your interpretation? It is important that there should be no cloud hanging over National Treasury's own integrity or integrity of its processes, which should then give it not just the legal but the moral authority to give advice and to make judgments on others without a sense on their part that but these are the same people whose own ways of doing things are not beyond reproach. So I think I think National Treasury should see this as a platform to put things in context, in perspective, and to clear things, so that when tomorrow you are standing behind us and saying this is what should happen, nobody should say leave the speck in our eye and focus on the log in yours. But equally, we ourselves too need to have the confidence that the people who come and give us advice from National Treasury have managed this challenge, which usually reside in politics of theory and practice. So I think for us that is the context within which these matters need to be looked at. And of course, the fact that the IFMS it's a very, very strategic program for government, and it therefore must be handled appropriately, but equally with a sense of time. Now, the things that have come out were substantive enough for us to seek to have this engagement. So that's why we're here, so that we can have a sense from your side what happened, why did it happen, and all that. So we thank you for the documentation that you have sent, except that DG, you sent us a presentation, but I was told this morning that it was going to be revised. Is this the revised presentation? Why was it revised?
Thank you, Chair. It was revised because we wanted the committee to be, there are new processes that we have that have emerged that we wanted to bring to the attention of the committee, and the change is just one sentence in the slide 40. That's the change. There's no other change except that we have put one bullet and we wanted to elaborate on that particular bullet in terms of the process that we engaged with, the very, very last bullet. Thank you, Chair.
All right. No. We do not like being ambushed with information. We always prefer to have information in time so that we can engage, we can read, because we read here, this committee, we read, so that we can read and then research this information and confirm it, so that when you come, we can then engage from an informed position. So if the the changes, the last sentence, the last bullet point on page 40, okay, that is fine. Now, how we're going to do it, DG, we thank you very much for the presentation, but we would like you to direct you to our areas of interest, and if at the end of what we thought is important, you still feel that there are areas that we should have spoken to, that are necessary to further enhance clarity on the issues, by all means, you'll be free to talk to us about them. But at this point, hear from us what it is that we may want to talk to, and then we can engage on other matters that might not have been covered. Comrade Minister, our preference is that we would want to engage the officials. And as you are here, please note down any issue that, as the political head, you may feel you would want to talk to. We'll give you some bit of time right at the end to talk to any issue that you may want to talk to, but at this stage would want to. I also want to welcome Sita, because I suppose, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I'm really wrong, we're where we are today because Sita could have done a better job initially, and R1 billion down the line were to go back to the starting blocks, and having learned the lessons from there, we thought we want to do things differently and better. But different and better has landed us where we are today. So let me hand over to Comrade Boy to lead us. So comrades, as usual, let's allow him to deal with whatever he has prepared, and when he's done, then we'll allow comrades to make follow-ups. Yes, comrade.
Good morning, Honorable Minister, and good morning, DG. I appreciate the fact that you understand that there's a huge responsibility on your shoulders, and the fact that you have made yourself available for us is quite important. It's something that we're quite excited about, that we are going to have a good relationship with SCOP. I say this because the matter that is in front of us, we became aware of it in 2015 as members of parliament. And your former colleague, we tried to engage him, we asked him, we persuaded him, but he has not made himself available until he left government. And I do understand that this project has been there for quite some time, but for us, simple and straightforward, where the fiscus is not coming up or being treated in a manner that is respectful, we really get involved into that. So we deal with what we call the expenditure trends, what have already been expended. I believe that IFMS 1, we stand on 1 billion and beyond. In a shorter way, how did we arrive there, DG? How did we arrive at 1 billion? What would have been the challenges? Give us a sense, because these are public money and we want to hear about it.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Maybe let me start by thanking the committee for giving us an opportunity to come and explain. And I think also welcome the committee's patience with us, because the committee has on 2 occasions asked us to come, and unfortunately it was not possible. And then with understanding, we're able to set today's date, and we really appreciate that. Now, Honorable Boy is correct. IFMS 1, we spent 1 billion, 1.049 billion. And this billion was spent on particularly 2 entities. One was SETA and the other one was National Treasury. For SETA, we have spent 280 million, and we can go into the details later as to what exactly the 280 million bought. And Treasury, we spent 769 million in relation to IFMS 1 and various, breaking down in various modules. If I have to, honorable members should look at slide 12. Slide 12 of the presentation that we distributed this morning has got details of what National Treasury and SETA spent money on.
Would slide 12 of the previous document be different to this one?
It will not be any different. It will be the same. It's the slide where
that's fine. Just say slide 12, because when you say of the one distributed this morning, then it sounds as if the previous one would have something different.
Slide 12 is titled IFMS 1 costs. And these are costs incurred up to November of 2015. Why November 2015? November 2015 is around the period of a key date that you must differentiate between IFMS 1 and IFMS 2. So in terms of slide 12 there, we have spent 214 million on the human resource management module. We have spent 163 million on the procurement module, and the list goes and goes. And we have detailed some of the, spending on the top. I mean, on the right-hand side of the table. What exactly the module was? What the module was attempting to do? What was it? The description of each module. So all in all, that comes to around 769 million. So Honorable Bonyi, you are correct that we have spent 1 billion on IFMS 1. That is correct.
Yes, thank you, sir. And then from there to go to IFMS 2, you did consult the World Bank. What were you looking for from the World Bank? What is it that the World Bank would have defined more better than the Cabinet of South Africa? Because I believe you had made your presentation to Cabinet. What is the state of things at that point? After such a huge expenditure, which was not accounted for anywhere else. You see, DG, that's why I was thanking you, is because Treasury can be the institution that spends such a lot of money without accountability or reporting anywhere else. Because I do believe that all of us are subjected to accountability. Where were they reporting this amount? And what made you to invite the World Bank to come to your rescue?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, with your indulgence, Chair, I'm not alone in appearing before you this morning. I'm with a team of colleagues and professionals who were part and parcel of the project, and who in some instances will be better placed to give the details of why we would have gone to the World Bank at the time. So allow me, Chair, to also use their knowledge on historical knowledge and background on some of these. In particular, I have Lindy, who is the project manager currently on the IFMS project, and I would prefer that she handles that. But what is also important is to know that IFMS is a key big project. What I've learned to understand after having engaged with this issue, especially now in my new role, Chair, I've learned to accept that a project like this, of this magnitude, is not an easy project. It's complicated. A lot of expert knowledge is necessary to actually embark on it. And it is for that reason that the solutions and the approaches that we've chosen for IFMS 1 needed to be reviewed.
DG, with due respect to you, we're talking of a project that started in 2005. That's the day you made submission to Cabinet. Linda came very late in this thing. But what I respect about governance is that you are taking full responsibility from day one of what has happened in the department. So, and when we were giving you an opportunity to go and reflect on this project, it's because as parliamentarians, we are aware of this project, and we're beginning to learn and read that it does have challenges. And the last part, DG, to be honest to you, you are the accounting officer in terms of the PFMA. We're relying on you, not on Lindy. We want information from you that what has been happening since 2005. We arrived at the billion and beyond the billion. Now, the National Treasury, which you have been part of for some time, goes to the World Bank and start engaging the World Bank. That you can't come to Parliament and say to us that you don't know about that. Lindy will give us the information. We rely on you as the accounting officer. Now I'm asking you a very simple question. That what happened? What informed? Because I believe also, DG, without misleading us, that you do have the report of the internal audit, which went extensively into the whole project, which we do have that report. What would have been the circumstances? There was a memo that went to cabinet, and after that memo, coming from cabinet, it created this second element of the IFMS2, and that can be provided by Lindy. It's supposed to be provided by the accounting officer, because you go to cabinet. She doesn't go to cabinet. It's based on that did you take us into confidence that what is it that they're talking about?
All right, I think maybe let's understand the question to be saying, why did we need IFMS 2 when we had already spent R1 billion on what is now called IFMS 1?
Chair, thank you very much. Let me make it clear. I'm not saying I'm not going to take full responsibility and accountability in terms of what happened. I will respond. But I am saying the reason we brought some colleagues who have got expert knowledge would have explained. That's what I'm trying to clarify.
No, that's fine. I heard you. I was amplifying the question.
The solutions chosen in IFMS 1 did not give us the intended result.
R1 billion down the line.
Chair, you can say that.
No, it's not that I can say it as if it's a subjective personal opinion. You've just given us the background, the breakdown. Yes, we used 1 million. Look, having read the documents, I thought you would say the reason we have IFMS 2 is because IFMS 1, we went for a hybrid model, right? And the thing just could not integrate.
Just on the point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
I thought that you have allowed me to ask the accounting officer. Just leave it there, Chairperson.
Okay.
Don't take him. If he doesn't want to cooperate with Parliament, we'll deal with that matter. But let him answer our questions. It's a simple question. He's supposed to have been well prepared.
All right, that's fine.
Chair,
Continue.
I don't have a problem in answering questions to Parliament. And I will do that today to the best of Parliament's knowledge and abilities that I have. I received a letter, Chair, from you on the 17th of August 2017. This letter is titled, I'm invited to address SCOPA on IFMS. Now, my understanding of being invited to address SCOPA on IFMS, Chair, if you have given me the opportunity to do that, and which I would still request that you do, it will explain the process as we embarked on it from 2002 through to 2005 and up to today, and the challenges that we have. Now, as the committee is questioning us, and me in particular, on specifics, I would have preferred, and I think it is only fair on our part, that I'm given the opportunity to take the presentation, the committee through the presentation that I've prepared, and in the way that I have prepared to engage the committee on, and the committee can then engage in terms of questions. Currently, with respect again, the committee is choosing to zoom in into one aspect of why we went to the World Bank. And the committee doesn't have the benefit of understanding where IFMS started in terms of our knowledge. And I understand the committee might have read the presentation. But without the committee understanding where we came from 2002, it is going to be, I would come in at a response and it might not satisfy the question as Honorable Bonyi is asking. So, but Chair, and I'm saying, I have colleagues who have worked. I might have been in the Treasury for 18 years, Chair, as Honorable Bonyi has indicated that I've been around for too long. My role had nothing to do with IFMS. But I'm taking charge and responsibility because now I know, and I was part of management. But I'm saying, can I be given an opportunity to go through the presentation? I've got the Chair of Internal Audit.
Chairperson, on a point of order, if I may.
Yeah.
If I may, please. Chairperson, I think the Honourable Boy has a line of questioning, and I think his questioning is very proper and very direct, and we would like to have very straight and direct answers. We are well briefed in terms, we've read through the documents last night. I believe the Honourable Boy would like to have his question answered in terms why did Treasury, why did they go to the World Bank? It's a simple question. Give us a straight answer. We know the details. We know that there was 1 billion spent on the system. We are concerned with regards to this. Just give us straight answers, and I believe the Honourable Boy is completely right in terms of his methodology in conducting his questions.
Chair, I'd also like to just ask where the minister is.
His jacket is still here.
Oh, okay.
His jacket is here.
That's quite important. Thank you.
Yes, the jacket seems to represent him.
Yeah, no. He did indicate to me that he's going out, he's going to come back. So he is around.
Yeah, no, Chair. I was saying that.
No, just a minute. Comrade Kuno.
Thank you, Chairperson. I didn't want to say on a point of order, but thank you for giving me this opportunity. National Treasury. National Treasury is one of our stakeholders that we've agreed to as the committee, and we work well together. And on that, I was going to ask if they can take us through, because some of the, in responding, Chairperson, we could, some of the information that is not here, we could be left behind as a committee, or to put into context and understand how they will be answering their questions. So I'm just asking if we could allow them to present the document to us.
No. That's I mean, no. You see, the issue is an irrelevant answer to a question. There's nothing to do with presentation. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, no, I hear you. No, it's fine. I hear you. I'm saying that this little runaround we're having, it's because the DG is giving an irrelevant answer to a very simple and straightforward question. It has nothing to do with background. Why did you have to engage the IMF? It's a simple, straightforward question that requires no expert knowledge. I can answer that if I was that side, because of the information that I have. But he has asked him, so he must respond. So I was just going to
let's cool down. We find DG, we're going to keep you here for some time. Don't worry. See, DG, in terms of the PFMA, in functions and powers, this is what we tell departments. That's how we take you serious. That's why we are saying as parliamentarians, take us serious. Because we want to engage you. 1 billion is not peanuts. It's not your money, it's not my money. It belongs to the people of South Africa. And we need to deal with that. And I'm not going to move away from that. You see, one of the other things that the G part of what the PFMA is saying, that promote and enforce transparency. That's what we expect from National Treasury. Now, if National Treasury can't stand up to that, what is it that we are going to benefit? How can you ask other departments to be able to comply with the law when the main institution that is supposed to help us to get transparency has not been conducting itself like that, you see? And that's where we are, DG. You see, if it says, when it starts, it says part of your function as National Treasury is to promote the national government's fiscal policy. So it means that the rules that are in place throughout the period of creation of this particular government, there's huge expectation from Treasury. Now where I'm seated and who have read the report, I'll express to you my disappointments, you see. But if ever you want us to engage and play around, I'm quite patient, but we're not going to leave Treasury. That's just simple. We are expecting you to account, sir, you see. And it's through you that we'll understand what has happened there. If you are not ready, say so to Parliament, that I'm not ready, and I want to postpone the session. But the reality is, what happened for South Africans to have lost 1 billion? And then creation of IMFS 2. What has been the situation? Because it's their money. They want to know as the public that what happened.
Thank you, Chair. I think, yes, in agreeing with the committee, the World Bank has proven to be experts in a number of areas. We have used the World Bank on many occasions, including on this one, because they have they were engaged in similar projects previously in other countries. And we thought the expertise that they have in putting or packaging together what essentially did not work. And we not only did we ask World Bank, we also asked Ernst & Young. So the two studies were commissioned, and the reports suggested that we have to then repackage this solution differently, and that's what we did immediately after that in repackaging the project differently after the reports, because the reports were clear that the hybrid model that we were trying to use was not going to work. Off-the-shelf system, as recommended, would have been or became a better option to look at, and that's when IFMS 2 was born, and that's where IFMS 2 even now is being implemented, and then we in terms of its implementation, we have staggered it in a way that we think it will be able to be delivered. And the unfortunate thing, as you correctly said earlier, is that it has taken long and it's taken time.
I thought that from the start, the mandate in 2005 was quite clear that we are taking a fragmented structure together to be able to deliver. And the project is, as the minister was saying, is to modernize the financial management systems, which is very important, DG, because we wouldn't have been accusing everybody about corruption and whatsoever that is happening in departments when this system could have been in place in 2005. So all administrations that followed after that cabinet agreement have not done their job. And today, the taxpayers have lost, at the initial act, 1 billion. How would you be able to explain that to us? Because it's very important that even if you went to IFMS 2, there's no results, DG. There is no result. The centralized system has not been on the table. And today provinces are taking different options. They're moving differently. What would you be saying is the problem? Is there no political will? Or what is it that created this particular lackluster in the department? But Treasury is supposed to be a reflection of how South Africa is working. And it's not working, DJ.
So in terms of the questions from Honorable Boy, I think it's important to note that when we went to cabinet, not in 2005, in 2013, but was to acknowledge that there were challenges in the first instance. Now, we can try and understand the 1 billion to have been lost or like you said, lost. Or it could have been a situation where we had, at the time, packaged in a way that we thought we would be able to deliver. But we are not, because as I said, this project is a complex project. It's modernizing, it is looking at parallel to your antiquated systems. You obviously want to come out and deliver based on what the project was all about. But it was then not possible. If one has to go back to the reasons why we went to cabinet, it is, at the time it was clear that the project is taking much longer than anticipated. At the time it was almost 10 years. If you think about it, from 2005 to 2013, 2015. It was such a long period. So I would not say there was no political will, because largely politicians will give a direction in terms of the need to modernize. That decision would have been taken at the time. But the day-to-day implementation is a technical process. It's us as officials. So I wouldn't want to even say there was no political will. There was, for the fact that politicians made sure that money is available.
I thought you'll actually go into the challenges that you as officials could not overcome. Go into the detail of that. The political part, it's fine. There was political will, it's okay. But what were the challenges that ultimately led to it being held? I think that's his question, that we've used 1 billion rands, but we more or less had to start afresh. So before we go to IFMS 2, and we can't just gloss over the 1 billion rands. So I thought you'd take that advantage and go in and explain what were the challenges and the complexities, so that we're clear that indeed there was a problem.
Yes. Chair, we have listed the challenges in slide 8 on IFMS 1. If I can direct the committee to slide 8. We are saying there that there were significant projects delays that were there in terms of the project, of the various phases of the project. There were institutional challenges around how we work with SETA, and again, SETA not being able to capacitate itself in line with software development that was necessary at that point in time. It also became very clear that integration of the various disparate systems would pose a formidable obstacle to the successful and cost-effective implementation of the project. That's what we said at the time. And again, as I said, we are using antiquated systems, and including hardware, by the way, in all government departments, that there were technological constraints in rolling this out. Now, all of these things, for the fact that they were raised right at the end, after implementation, or to an extent after spending some resources, it became clear that we had to do something. So that's why then it was important to change course and make sure that we and by the way, Chair, it is 10 years into, it was 10 years into something, trying to work on something that was not there. Expertise in the Treasury in this area at the time, call it, was non-existent. And I'm not going to try and say that we had all the capacity. The whole process was fraught with some challenges, including not only on the integration side or technological side, but also in terms of human, human capacity to deliver on the project.
So you say, DG, that's why you were to abandon. To us, it's not some, it's 1 billion. You know how many houses could have been built? If ever, that 1 billion could have been used differently from what you are saying. But you went to IFMS 2, and you sorry, Chair. But when you arrive,
we've been sabotaged today because there's no water, nothing. But we'll soldier on.
DG, you went to IFM 2, MS2, and you went to Cabinet. And Cabinet agreed again, maybe with some of the things that you're saying. But the problem with Cabinet is that we are the ones that must be able to say, as Parliament, and approve, and be able to say that this expenditure, did it meet what was being presented, you see? Is it correct to spend the 1 billion in the manner you are saying? That's why, after a very long time, we're starting there today, just to get clarity about this IFMS 1 and the expenditure trends that were there, you see. But you see now, on how much cost did you go to the World Bank? How much did it cost us? After Cabinet is walking from one door to another door. The World Bank, how much cost did we arrive at? And how much did their own advice in the creation of the PMO? How much did it cost us as South Africans? Was it important for us not to overlook, because you are saying there's no experience in Treasury, then you go to the World Bank. You go to Cabinet, you get the mandate, you go to the World Bank. What has exactly been? And how much did it cost us?
Chair, we went to the World Bank not to assess the project at that point in time. In terms of the actual cost, I don't have the cost with me. I think at the appropriate time we will make, as soon as we have the number, we'll try and check. I'll get my colleagues just to confirm and check how much we've spent. If we spent anything, by the way, I'm not sure. We will check that both for EY and World Bank.
You see, DG, well, I'll be surprised if Ernst & Young did it for free. I'll really be surprised, because they seem to be everywhere. Guyana Water Project, SAA, now National Treasury. I don't think they'll do it for free. Well, what I wanted to say was that I think your colleagues, I don't know how the people you send give feedback, because surely they should have known that, you know, when you come before us, one details of things that are relevant to the subject matter. We don't deal with generalities because they don't tell us anything. You see, the question is asking is related to costs. It's related to cost. So we went along, did this, then we hit a brick wall, then went to the World Bank and Ernst & Young. And they gave us a report, and then we started IFMS 2. So if you don't have those costs, then it does not complete the picture.
Shall we have the costs? As I said, I'm not alone. I'm with colleagues here, and because
DJ, can you caution you are not chairing this meeting. There's only one chairperson, is that one. And you must go through him. You see. In your department, we don't interfere with you. But here we're being chaired by the chairperson. If you can just go through him, it will help you quite a lot. It will make the meeting to be able to have progress. But if you want to undermine us, DG, as if you are your extension, we're not your department. Get that more clearer from you. We are not your department. We are here to account. And you are going to account. Whatever other mechanism that we are going to account. DG, I want to hear, what are the costs? And if you're not prepared, say so, DG. But then it meant that you didn't take the parliament, which is a constitutional body. You have never taken us serious, which is a trend in Treasury. You don't take us serious. Because if you take the public serious with their money, you're supposed to be able to tell us that how much was it. You're not going to treat this thing just as a push around. Your details are fine, but we want to know how did you spend the money of the public on this particular occasion. It's their money, it's not your money. Give us the sense, DJ, that what is going on. Linda will talk at your own time. But of now, that chairperson that is chairing this meeting, so I've asked him to ask you to give us the answer, because that's what the PFMA is saying. Don't send us all over, Chief. And avoid to make political statements, because we are going to follow you on those political statements. But of now, we want to hear how much did it cost South African public for itself to go to the World Bank. Even if I'm sure you don't go to the World Bank by just waking up in the morning and go around Johannesburg. You get into a plane, and how much does that cost us, and how many people were in those delegations. That's all the cost we want to hear. At that expense, we're able to create IFMS 2. What has been happening, Jish?
Yes, DG.
Chair, we have spent 2 million rand for EY. World Bank provided this service with no cost. Gartner, as one of the service provider to assisted us in evaluating this, we spent 500,000 rands for it.
Good.
And then it meant that the IFMS 2 was started. And it meant that the office that was recommended by the World Bank, PMO, was created. What happened there, DJ? Was the internal audit, which is part of your institutions, which we as scope a hold very high, has got a lot of reservations about your conduct during that period. Would you just take us through what was the view of the internal audit at that particular point?
Firstly, the World Bank did not say we must create the PMO office. I think in our 2013 CAP memo, we saw it fit because the institutional arrangements to manage such a large project were flawed in a way, because when you look at how we managed it up to that point in the Treasury, it was inappropriate in terms of oversight. So we ensured that there is that PMO, Project Management Office, which will essentially, and maybe let me take you to slide, which slide is it? Sorry, Chair, I'm just taking you through, yes, slide 3 of the document. So when we went to Cabinet, after a decision was taken to change course, as I said earlier, we then decided to form a program management structure of IFMS, and it's indicated in that slide, whereby the IFMS Project Management Office is at the core of coordinating and doing work. We also set up a steering committee comprising of ourselves, the DPSA, and SITA to actually ensure that there's management of the project. And it is through this process that IFMS 2 was rolled out and IFMS 2 was implemented. So everything that you see around IFMS 2 would be following this broad structure as indicated in slide 3.
So maybe, Comrade Boy, before you proceed, so Ernst & Young, World Bank, what were their recommendations? If the PMO was your own decision, what is it that came out of the World Bank, Ernst & Young, Gardner review that you are using going forward into IFMS 2?
Should I respond, Chair?
Yeah, sure.
It is at that point, Chair, where I said, I'm not alone here. I'm with a team of people, and that should help me on this part, because they would have gone into too much a detail in understanding what, but the basic and the summary of the reports was that we must consider solutions that are off the shelf that can be modified to actually get to what we should be doing on the IFMS project, and not do that hybrid model that we tried to implement, which failed dismally in IFMS 1.
Oh, okay. All right. No, that's fine.
So you are going to take us now through when the starting process of IFMS 2 and the challenges. But your own internal audit, which I hope you have read that report, doesn't give us a good picture of a department that is run quite efficiently, even worse with its own paymasters, which Linda is implicated quite highly in that particular one. And she is conflicted. But if you want us to take it, I'll take it through the report you see. I'm very patient with it. But give us a sense that in IFMS 2, you must not forget, sir, that up until today, this thing has not been implemented. Nothing has happened. In all the expenditures that I'm busy asking you about, this thing has not been implemented. And this is National Treasury. Now, if National Treasury can't deliver services to our own people, what must we do? Because this is important for us. In 2013, in fact, what made us to be more concerned and in engaging, in 2030, in the National Development Plan, when we say we want a capable state, this thing was supposed to have long been implemented. Now you say you are admitting that it's more than 10 years, and it's growing trend, that this thing is not moving anywhere, but the money is going. What would have been the problems, sir, about IFMS 2?
So in terms of IFMS 2 and what IFMS 2 is doing or achieving, if you look at slide 19, based on the solution that we decided on, broadly these would be the solutions that IFMS 2 will deliver on. Now, because we have known the challenges in IFMS 1, and we have known the challenges identified internally by management at the time, this was a matter that internal audit committee would have anyway be interested in. I'm not sure of the date, but it could have been early days. Those years were around 2012, I mean 2013, 2014, where
I can help you. Internal audit discussed its report in a meeting of the 2nd March of 2016. Before that. Okay.
I'm not, Chair, through you, I'm not talking about that. I'm coming to that. I'm saying IFMS 1 was a challenge. We've noted that. We are getting to IFMS 2, and it has to deliver. We have spent $1 billion and we are spending money at that time. There was also an issue in terms of the transition of contracts that must carry on and contracts that must stop in terms of IFMS 1. At the time, and I'm saying naturally, such an issue would be an issue for the internal audit. Internal audit at that time, long before 2016, decided to make IFMS a standing agenda item in terms of management giving report in terms of the status of the audit of the project. So it is through that process that then internal audit in its oversight of the Treasury and its responsibilities decided then to ask internal audit, I'm sorry, when I say, I meant audit committee, it was a standing agenda item for the audit committee, where the internal audit committee, obviously the secretariat and the seat. Audit committee then decided to make this a standing agenda item. Audit committee then decides to make sure that there is a payments review that Honorable Boy is talking about. Now that payment review was for a set period, April 2014 to I think August of 2015, for 9 months. An internal audit process, as all of you know.
Certainly more than 12 months. April 2014 to August 2015.
It's about 9 months. Okay?
Can we help
you can check.
Before it came to its own
Yes.
fundings. What that report says, the report that is in front of us, it says, furthermore, it should be noted that an initial document and request was sent to IFMS management on the 7th of August 2015, requesting supporting documentation related to all IFMS expenditure for the period 1st April 2014 and 31st August 2015. However, limited supporting documentation was provided by IFMS management by the 14th of August 2015. I'm just presenting to you now, this is your own internal audit that is coming across, expressing that an institution that's supposed to be trusted by South Africans couldn't even provide, leave alone the 1 billion, which is to you is the miniature. But come IFMS 2, you can't, that management that you're talking about, that Linda is involved in, couldn't provide documentation to make it possible for internal audit to perform its own duties. What do you make out of it, sir?
Sure. I was busy trying to explain to answering Honorable Boy's question, and I was systematically going to a point where at some point in my response, it might take a little bit longer, and the committee should please bear with me, because I need to explain this thoroughly so that when I take full responsibility, I take full responsibility on something that I've explained, and if I have to act, and I must act on something that really I either misrepresented to you or misunderstood. So I was trying to explain that there is, arriving at IFMS 2 and its implementation, in the process of its implementation, in terms of the oversight that the Audit Committee of the National Treasury has on its own operations, internal audit was commissioned to do an this payments review for the period that we can just confirm as to what period it was. In its own work, internal audit work, and by the way, Chair must point out an internal audit process is a process that strengthens management. Internal audit of the National Treasury is on an ongoing basis having work that is doing on its own self.
Yeah, no.
It picks up information.
No.
And it
No. Internal audit committee, we understand those things. We deal with them on a daily basis when we have departments. So let's not go lolololo on that part. We understand. I don't want anything to creep that suggests that we have limited understanding of processes and things. Believe you me, we do. So the question is asking actually talks to her and to National Treasury that you have processes that are not sufficiently responsive, which you are supposed to be monitoring. I think that's the question. That how does it happen? How does it come?
You see, sir, this type of behavior of yours, where you are not giving us answers, becomes a problem, you see, because we want to hear from you, you're the accounting officer. We have already now picked up that there's tension between yourself and the audit and the general auditor about these matters, you see. That's why you're getting a qualified report. Now, you see, if you are not able to convince us that you are compliant yourself, there's no need for Parliament to rely on and be confident about about the National Treasury's work. That is not good for our country. National Treasury is important, sir, and we take you very serious. Take us serious. I'm just asking you now, here's an internal audit. Leave alone what we hear about the the general auditor.
Auditor General.
Yeah, Auditor General. Leave that one, because I'm coming back to it, you see, but I want to help you, or you must help me and convince me that you do understand these processes. He's correct. We understand these processes very well, sir. We question every day. Every day we've got departments here. This collective that we see here is quite ready to re-engage into it. But you must be comfortable to give us answers, sir. Here is your report. It says internal audit, when it arrived, it couldn't even find paperwork from Linda there to be able to account for the work that they have done, which is additional to a 1 billion that just disappeared in the department. How do we build the confidence of our people and around National Treasury if you are not able to do this exchange with other scope and feel that Parliament is here to make you to account? That is a problem, sir. But give us the sense. There's a lot that the internal audit I'm going to talk to and explain to you the challenges. But these are the same things that have been done by other departments. But we at hope that National Treasury is a sea of hope for our people. But you are not even able to explain to us service delivery of a 1 billion. You want us to trivialize it and treat it as if it's not important. That's our people's money, Chief. And that's why I'm not going to walk away. You can be angry, you can be pissed off with me. It's not personal. I've got a job to do here, to ask questions on behalf of South Africans.
I have no intention of not answering any question. Maybe let me make it once more clear, Chair. The Internal Audit Committee found 54 findings in terms of this. Suppose it has to be an internal audit report. It was not meant for anyone outside the Treasury at the time. It was an internal audit report, and the internal checks and balances of the institution, which is working, picked up that there are 54 irregularities, call it that. And these were identified in the internal audit report. And they were brought to management's attention in terms of the process. Anyone who understands this process will know that it definitely would have served at management and say, management, respond, because there are lapses under your watch. And that's, and correct, because an internal audit process, in my understanding, has to provide corrective measures. And that's what I think happened here. Outlining lapses, and I'm calling them lapses in governance, because I think when we look at the 54 findings of, as an example, we know them, and I'm not going to go into details. Honorable members have got them in the slides in front of you, and they're listed. And under each of the lapses in governance that were picked up by the internal audit process, there are corrective actions, Honorable Boyd, that were instituted at the time on this. But what is also encouraging to demonstrate that the oversight committee, processes within the Treasury work. The audit committee decided, correctly so, to institute a forensic investigation because of the nature of, call it the sample of the period, and just one aspect of the management of the project as a whole, which was just the payments review on all of these. We embarked on a forensic investigation, of which I think it is, as I said, a demonstration, Chair, of a process that's working internally.
Just on a point of order, Chair. You see, DJ, I'm saying you have got this internal audit report in front of you. And you are saying to us, yes, 54. You see, irregularities were identified, findings were made. Some of them are very catastrophic to a department that must be trust to South Africans. And I'm saying to you, which is what we know, and this is what the Auditor General is very good about, is if it's when departments run away with information and don't provide it. Your own internal audit says so. That when it wanted who pays who, it couldn't find the information in your own department. I mean, why would you convince us that this thing is flying very well? Because it couldn't get, and this is what they are evasive about. Where did Linda and her team hide the facts away from internal audit? This is what we want to know. It's no more IFMS 1, which you could have hide yourself behind CETA. I'm talking about where your DG, your former colleague, Fuzani, was fully responsible for monitoring the work here. That's how you went to cabinet. And that didn't happen, DJ. That's why you've got 54 findings, and some of them are catastrophic. And they involve payment, 134 million of an expenditure, DJ. You can't explain it in that way that they're explaining to us. 134 million, and I keep on saying, it's not your personal salary, it's the money of our own people. SARS goes and collect, and then Treasury start to spend. If Treasury can spend 130 on top of another billion, I mean, how do we entrust hope into National Treasury? This is what I want answers about, DJ. That how did we arrive here with non-implementation of the IFMS, which is supposed politically to be able to have built a state that could have been able to deliver to our people. There's a failure today. Provinces are beginning to take initiatives and they pay themselves on their own because this IFMS for the past 10 years has not been able to be delivered, which would have been improved governance in South Africa. That's why our concern, Chief. Not about you and how good you are. We are concerned that governance in South Africa, we are being accused of being a corrupt government because this thing is not there. That's why we want answers that how does it happen under your leadership? We arrived at such a crisis. How did it happen? We understand an internal audit. You can repeat it. We've got it here, Chief. It's here. We read this thing like a Bible. You see, we read the Constitution like a Bible, and we are quite educated. Help us to take us through these processes. Why would 134 million in creation of that PMO office of yours brings the internal audit to begin reflecting on the state of things about this institution?
Chair, like in any department and any organization, there are processes that are being undertaken. At no point did we say there could not have been challenges from a governance point of view. And what I'm saying to you is that I acknowledge that it shouldn't have happened. That such 54.
I think that's where we should have started. TJ.
Yes.
Because the way we interact with you, and I think maybe we're wrong, to have high expectations from National Treasury. I think maybe that's where we're operating from. That we expect better, and when there are these kind of lapses, how do your officials tomorrow sit that side and then point fingers at other departments or try to to say, no, this could not be justified, when they can say, but you, National Treasury, are no exceptional department. You are just like any other department. If that was the case, I don't think we would be questioning you this way. But it's because we expect better. I think that's where. So where you ended, that's where you should have started. To say, well, there were lapses, this, that, and then we can go into the details of why, how come, who did what, who was responsible. But our position is that we expect better from National Treasury. That's why I think it is being pitched at a much, much higher level than any other ordinary engagement. Comrade Boy? Oh, okay.
I just wanted, before you answer, I'll read for you the letter that was sent by Octavia Matao, who's an acting audit committee chairperson. He says internal audit discussed. She, yes. Yeah. On 24 July, audit committee, after its deliberation with IMFS team, resolved to engage internal audit to review the adequacies and effectiveness of the payments process, focusing on all payments effected on the 1st April 2014. Internal audit discussed its report with us at the meeting of the 2nd March 2016. A total of 54 findings were identified, and the risk associated with 49 findings were assessed as catastrophic. While the balance was assessed as high. These risks indicate that no reliance can be placed on the operation of internal controls to mitigate them. You see, the audit opinion expressed, therefore, concluded that controls in this environment are inefficient and ineffective, rendering this control environment inadequate. To rectify an inadequate control environment requires excessive effort, urgent and immediate attention, where management must consider that and implement the internal audit. Now I'm saying, I'm not reflecting on, I'm talking about internal audit, which can be answered by Linda, because Linda is conflicted. We want answers from you, sir. Now you say we must take it casual and agree that you are going to do these things. You arrived on it and you accepted your appointment in cabinet on the basis that you are there as a legal entity. And that's why this report to us is quite important, because it talks about the internal operations of National Treasury, which is supposed to be giving hope to South Africans that their money is in safe hands. Now, if you can't even look after our own money that has been provided now, how do we trust you? And how do we work with you when your own internal processes, which provided by your own internal audit, are not able to mitigate or fight the conditions that we're confronted with, of a project that has got political essentiality? It's a very important project towards a unitary state, but you have not delivered on this particular one. Why would Treasury treat us like that? Go to cabinet, convince cabinet, employ the World Bank, create IFMS2, but still then, with no deliverance, the problem is at point one. What is the situation there? Is National Treasury an oasis of hope or not? Or what must we tell South Africans as politicians? I'm a politician. I have to convince, go and talk to other people after this. But if National Treasury is in this state, what has happened, sir?
Chair, I think, you know, as I was indicating earlier, that one does not deny the fact that obviously there are lapses in governance, and one doesn't deny the fact that there are challenges in the project. And Honorable Member Boy, even currently, Chair, there are challenges. I don't think we should throw our hands in the air and say, you know, if Treasury or these findings can be on Treasury, then we must lose hope. I'm not in that space. I think it's important that we continue to do what's right and continue to build the trust and confidence that the committee, Parliament, South Africans should have on us in the way we manage our affairs. Because not only do we manage our affairs internally, but we also, based on the two documents that you are showing, Honorable Member, the Constitution and the PFMA, that we have certain huge responsibilities bestowed on us. And there's no excuse to say these things happen under our watch. But I'm saying, on the same breath, I'm happy that internally also, at least, we've got an internal audit process that's functioning, that was able to identify this. And that will point us in the right direction to do something about it.
Okay.
And we are doing something about it. Maybe, Chair, let me indicate what we are doing to show that there is something about it. It actually, on a light note, Chair, on this matter, I was going to get a warning letter from my minister, because the feeling, as we discuss on this, is that we are taking too long to get to the issues. And I take that responsibility and accept it. To him, I kind of gave excuses that it's only 3 months that I've been in this role, that we've been doing work here and there. But that's not an excuse, as much as we are doing other things. The reality here is that there are things that are ongoing in this project. To that effect, I have, and if you look at the last bullets that I was going to talk to, I have, after uncovering other irregularities, that I've commissioned the internal audit to help me get into the details of what I'm talking about. Stopped all payments, all IFMS payments to date have been stopped, and this has been taking place at least for the last, from the 7th, I think. Yes, from the 7th of August. I stopped all IFMS-related payments, meaning the CFO is informed, the financial management people are informed, anyone who presses that final button to pay on IFMS-related expenditure in the Treasury store. Why did I do that? I did that because I wanted to satisfy myself. In the congested, and it's a very learning curve in the last 3 months, if you think about it. You might have thought I'm in the Treasury chair for many years, but in the last 3 months, there's been so many things, apart from the recession, apart from the downgrade, apart from engagements with business, investors and so on, trying to convince people that we have a tightly managed ship as the Treasury, and explaining and demonstrating and engaging. We then, on one side, also have to deal with these challenges. And I'm not using that as an excuse. But I have stopped. I have seen the need. And as much as I'm doing all of these other things, I was also systematically looking, engaging. I must have had, and the audit committee chair is here, I've had 3, 4 engagements with the audit committee, independent engagements, one-on-ones, with the audit committee chair, to just understand what exactly is happening in IFMS from her point of view, from an audit committee point of view. I have spoken. I have, in the Treasury itself, because I didn't have enough time, I've asked 2 senior DDGs, to help me speak to individuals, everyone in the Treasury who's responsible for this, to understand, so that the day I act with knowledge and information. Because it was not an easy period for me. So I have stopped IFMS payments. I'm going to be restructuring the management office, Chair. The PMO. The PMO, as much as about 4 weeks ago, I called the whole IFMS team. We've got 1,200 staff, as you know, and I might not claim to know all. I said to the Office of the Accountant General, I want to meet each and every person, including a PA, who works on IFMS. I met them. You will be surprised here to know that we've got only 4 people, 5 including Lindy, who works on IFMS, on a project that has spent so far 2.2 billion, which is worrying, which is very worrying, because you have a director and 2 deputy directors and a chief director, and even in her case, she is not full-time on the job. She works 50%. She's employed as Chief Director, Technical Support Services in the Accountant General's office. She shouldn't be in IFMS because that's not her core role. An accountant by profession who should actually be supporting the work that she has to do. So I have decided, with the permission from the minister, I'm going to be restructuring the Project Management Office of IFMS. And I'm going to be beefing it up.
You see, sir, if it was your house, I don't have a problem. It's a very good process you could put up for your own house. Here we're dealing with government. This is people's money, sir. And I'm saying to you, this is what they say, your own internal audit. Now, you see, this is the hope you are saying we must sell to South Africans. It says on inadequate, non-existent financial and operating controls in that IFMS. Non-compliance to laws and regulations in that institution, right under Treasury. Now, the domestic worker that they are counting here that is supposed to be cleaning an office has got nothing to do with this. We are talking about people who are equipped, who have got skills. We say to you, sir, that we invite Treasury with hope that they are doing a good job, they themselves, and says to departments as they sit here, National Treasury, can you comment? And solely would comment with confidence, because we then hope that Treasury is organized. Now, if such a unit of such high cost inside National Treasury in itself can even run its own books, how do you expect us to be able to talk to South Africans about it? And the money which you don't worry about continues going. Billions are being spent on a particular project that is not delivering. That could have made it possible for us, because same as procurement. Procurement is still here. When Kenny Brown came to us, he spoke so very eloquent and very hopeful that procurement under the National Treasury is doing very well. Now, internal audit says, hey, wait. You are being misled by this department. There's no truth in what they are telling you every day that you're talking to them. And all the correspondences that goes to different departments under your authority, putting them under pressure to improve their services. If they can see this report, they would then be asking parliamentarians, what are you doing? You put us under pressure. We take paperwork to National Treasury, even on SASSA. They spend the whole time there in National Treasury to be able to be found that they are financially prudent. And here is it internally in your own organization. You can't run a proper organization. How can we trust you? That's the basis of what we wanted to interrogate here. That, I mean, it talks about inadequate payment procedures. There's no procedures of payment inside National Treasury. Now you go and call a domestic worker to talk to her about what? Poor woman there or a man, whoever is cleaning the office now must answer about you not being able to pay and have proper procedures in your own institution. Where does it come in? You will never be able to account because it's not trained. What is wrong with Treasury? This is what we want to know. You are not helping us, sir. In all these other things you are lamenting, you are not helping us. Don't jump to conclusion. Take us, because this is what we do to departments. We take departments on the basis of the work that is and the information provided by the Auditor General, National Auditor General. And you are already at war with it because you don't want to be seen as a qualified entity. Now you are pulling the National Treasury, the National Audit. You don't want the General Auditor to come with that finding so that parliamentarians can be exposed to the inadequacies of National Treasury. And this is what we are wanting answers from, sir. All the other things you are saying to us, the end product of when you came in 3 months. For us, you were there. You are supposed to know what has happened inside the entity itself. And IMFS, I'm saying to you, whatever you are saying, we have spent $1 billion since 2005. And the amounts are increasing. But the internal audit says there's a lot of inadequacies inside National Treasury. How do you convince us, sir? The internal audit report is in front of you. It's got 54 findings and hard 49 findings that are catastrophic to a department that must give hope to South Africans.
Chair, allow me to say the following. Two things, two profound things in terms of how Honorable Boy is approaching this conversation. One, I don't think we want to. Honorable Boy is bringing constantly, Chair, and an appeal to you, two issues that are not in the agenda: the Auditor General, and we are not bullying the Auditor General. There's no, at no point did I mention that we are bullying the Auditor General, and I wish that if that conversation must happen, let's open it and we can engage on it.
Okay, all right.
DG, I told you that I'm not employed by you, and will never employ me. Take that. I'm not coming here to be prescribed by you how to ask questions. That you can do to your own children. I'm not your child. I'm not your child. That you can do to your own children and prescribe to them how they should engage you. Here I'm doing my work here. Here I'm doing my work. If you don't have answers, you don't have answers. But don't come and tell me that don't ask me about this or that. The Auditor General is key. It's a constitutional body. And if ever you don't want to be able for them to do and monitor your work, say so. And then we will leave our own constitutional obligations and come and listen to you because you are the new constitution of South Africa. We must read you and not read what is written in front of us. I told you that we are guided by the PFMA, not by your house orders. We don't listen to you. I'm not your child. You're not going to come and tell me what to think and how to think.
All right.
Stop that, DG. Okay. Get out of it.
All right. No, that's fine. The Auditor General part, leave it out. You have already answered to it that no, you are not fighting with the Auditor General in terms of findings. That's okay. And, well, I would say it's good that he has raised it and you have been able to confirm that it's not true. Because, as someone said, he can't unsee what he has seen. It's read in papers that there are these things. And so far, people think that is what is happening. So if that is not the case, let's leave it at that. But the issue, and I think it goes back to what I said, that our sense, we hold National Treasury very high. But if you get lapses, because what it means is that Lindy was actually not doing her work as the person assigned to oversee the project and the process. That's what it means. All those inadequacies. When departments come here, always talk about problems with project management. They're not doing this, they're not doing that. That's exactly what she did or she did not do. When he spoke about documents not being there when they are requested, in fact, on 2 occasions, they had to extend the deadline. She's the person who should be able to say, well, indeed, and I'm sure you should have asked her when you look at the findings, what happened here? Because that's the person who is the points person for you as management. And then to have said, no, on this one, no, it's not true, we gave them everything. Or, yeah, indeed, this company and that company did not give documents. Or, from our side, this is what has happened. So these are things we find in all departments, and to get them on in National Treasure, unless if we're mistaken, you know, in having a high regard for National Treasure. That's, I think that's where it is. So I think the issue of his concerns around the findings is that your officials who are supposed to do the right, before we go to internal audit, that they've done a good job, which I agree with you. It is one part, but the other part is the fact that your officials, directors, chief directors, have failed you in a project that at the beginning you said is very complex, it's very important, but then your own officials treat it like it's an everyday thing. You say there are 5 people from your office. And yet I thought when we migrated from IFMS 1, we would then have picked up the lessons. What has happened is that the PMO is staffed with consultants. And the way it is, consultants are on their own. So I think inadequate monitoring and control from your senior officials would have led to that situation. And we'll pass it. Because that is a fact, so we can't sit around it forever and ever and ever. Comrade Boy, are you done?
I'll allow you, Chair, to engage. I've not got any answers. I mean, I fairly was expecting the DG to have delivered. The DG is not delivering. I mean, he's talking politics like he's a politician.
Okay.
Suppose I'm saying to you that they say IFMS payments, adequate and ineffective review, inadequate payment procedures, lack of project cost monitoring. Now, at that level, when you are a DG, you then come and tell us that, no, you ask people to stop payment. What have you done to those that were doing this work? That your own internal audit. He brings Lindy here, but Lindy can't even give, no formal independent quality assurances. She can't provide that. It's catastrophic from Treasury. It doesn't come from anywhere else. It doesn't come from correctional services that we are battling to get right. If the institution that he is spearheading, he doesn't know what's going on, I don't understand what we are going to spend our time on. I just want to give other members to see if they've got issues, but for me, the DG has not provided answers on the detail of his own report internally. It's not a report that's written by you, Chairperson. I can see her articulating it quite clearly. I've been preparing the whole night. You see.
I've read it.
Yeah, but you can hear that the DG doesn't know this report. He knows the politics about it and how to defend his stuff. Now we are becoming politicians. He's getting angry with me. For me, he must talk to what he knows that is catastrophic.
All right.
The problem with National Treasury and Scopa, we deal with details. And this is the details, that's why I had to refer him to this particular document, so that he can deal with the details and give answers to those particular details. Okay. And he's failing me there.
All right, that's fine. Comrades, let me go to Honorable Ross. Ross?
Thank you.
Maybe just have 3 or 4 questions?
Yes,
so
3 or 4 questions. Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Chairperson, noting the line of questioning and the answers, I'd just like to state for the record that I agree with my colleague that I think that there's a crisis in the making, and we would like a SCOPA to be helpful to address this crisis. I think it's very important for the country, it's very important for Treasury, but it's also important for CETA and other role players to step up to the plate in solving this crisis. It is of great concern that there's a crisis, but there's also a little bit of a highlight in terms of audit report that is very functional and helpful, and I believe that is very helpful. Chairperson, if I can ask the DG, what is the current systems that you use in Treasury to affect the the asset management, and also to affect the payments of thousands of state employees. What are the two systems that you're currently using?
Currently, we are to pay state employees. We are using Persal, and the asset we're using Logis.
For the asset management systems. These systems, DG, has been in existence for about 40 years. It is, and you're trying to modernize the system to move to the integrated financial management system. Now, what is the risks in terms of moving away from these systems? And of course, you've engaged with CETA, and that would be my next question. But if you can, what are the risks in terms of migrating from this system to the new system, in terms of perhaps complete collapse of functionality?
The implications are huge. That's why we are building parallel to the day-to-day operations of the two systems. That's why IFMS is or was seen to be the solution, because we have to be comfortable that we are able to migrate without causing harm to the payment system.
No, absolutely correct. I believe that is a very important point, that we note the massive risk in terms of, but unfortunately in this process of migration, it is of concern to the committee that R1 billion has been misspent to a certain extent. But we'll come to that just a bit later. But just in terms of the different key program stakeholders, the Department of Public Service and Administration, and we've seen several ministers over a period of time, and we've also seen the role of CETA. Would you agree with me that was not solely the responsibility in the past of Treasury, but it was certainly highlighted that CETA played a prominent role in terms of functionality, in terms of implementing these systems, and that it is in the public domain that we find incompetence in CETA with regards to technology and systems that, in terms of driving the process, and that we also found some vested interest in CETA being responsible for non-compliance, so to speak.
Well,
would you agree on that?
I think the last part, I wouldn't want you to commit yourself in making comments on your colleagues. Let's take it as a statement from his side, and CETA is here. They must respond to what he has said.
All I was going to say was that it is critical and important that all three stakeholders engage in dealing with this thing. So without getting to the details, but it's important that both CETA ourselves and DPSA are critical in the implementation of this system. So whether that's working efficiently or not is another thing.
So to summarize, that you accept joint responsibility with CETA and the DPSA?
Certainly, we do accept joint responsibility.
Now, I'd just like to, in terms of the established government structure and the organogram that you've presented, just for clarity, the IFMS steering committee, was this only established in terms of the second phase of the project, not on IMFS number 1? Was there a steering committee previously responsible for taking these decisions?
To the knowledge I'm having, and colleagues are here, they can correct if I'm mistaken, my understanding was that the steering committee as we have it now was for IFMS 2.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the question is, did you have it on IFMS 1? Did you have a steering committee?
I wouldn't know, but I don't think so. The colleagues are suggesting that no, we did not have a project steering committee in this current form in IFMS 1. We did not.
Just in terms of proper coordination, I would imagine that would have been important in IFMS 1. But congratulations, at least there's a steering committee. But now I would like to get to the bottom of the steering committee, just to go a little bit deeper into it. In terms of the risk assessment within the steering committee, I think that would be very important. To establish the risk, whether this can fly or not, what can we do, what are the technical shortages, and I think there was a decision taken that you go to the World Bank and also Ernst & Young, which I think I will support, because you're looking for for competence to help establish and to help the migration. Now, in terms of the risk committee, how functional is your risk committee, and what were the risks that the risk committee alluded you to?
I just want to find out, is it risk committee or steering committee?
Look, in the organogram, you have the IMFS program committee. On the right, there's a risk committee, and then the audit committee. Is the risk committee the audit committee, or is it a separate committee?
Just switch the mic on.
Okay, sorry, the blue refers to Treasury committees. Is both the risk committee of the National Treasury and the audit committee of the National Treasury there?
Okay, fine. Now, the audit committee of the National Treasury, what role are they playing, and what were the risks that what are the current risks that they identified?
The risks are largely, as per the earlier conversation, identified as an example in the payments review. The audit committee has always been concerned about the implementation of the IFMS project. They've always been concerned about money spent without having the requisite, what do you call it, progress that can be demonstrated through, as an example, having spent $1 billion or $2 billion. So that would have been the interest of the audit committee, to a point where the internal audit report highlighted or vindicated what they would have seen as suspicions that this project might be having challenges in it. So I think through that they were able then to pick up, because their interest has always been on the implementation of the project.
Yes, can I then just ask, in terms of the risk committee or risk impact, and I see in the internal report, and that's page 76 of this report.
Just, your last two questions?
Yeah, I'm wrapping
then
up.
I'll come back to you.
You see, in terms of risk and impact, not provided by the client, which is, if I believe it's Accenture, ineffective cost management, ineffective project management, potential fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And that brings us to the PFMA, and that my colleague was so strict about, which we all support and endorse, in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, to prevent fruitless and wasteful expenditure, to prevent irregular expenditure and unauthorized expenditure. Now, in terms of this specific page in your internal audit report, ineffective cost management, ineffective project management, and potential fruitless and wasteful expenditure, what would your views be in terms of this? Can it be addressed? We've seen, is it in your view that R1 billion, R1 billion, in this instance, could perhaps be classified as fruitless and wasteful? Because we clearly see, if you look just below in the page, the report indicates, in addition, management should perform a value for money assessment. And where no value for money was received, management should ensure that amounts paid to the service providers are recovered. Do you have any plans in terms of a recovery plan from service providers where there was money paid, where there was absolutely no value for money? And are we talking about R1 billion where there's no value for money?
We currently don't have any plans to recover any monies, because two things, I think, from the Honorable Ross's questions. One, I think we have not ourselves said or come to conclusion that this was fruitless or wasteful expenditure in terms of implementation. However, based on information that we know, and we are engaging, and I'm going back to the question that I thought, and I'm happy that it's coming out in this fashion, that in terms of that process, we are currently engaged with the Auditor General. In terms of our engagement, has classified certain types of expenditure along those lines. Our understanding, which is a normal process, before a final audit is issued, is engaged.
We know those processes.
So yeah, now, what we're doing then is to come to that conclusion, and that conclusion then will, once there's agreement that is fruitless or wasteful, we can then look at options available to us as per this recommendation.
Your last one.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just a very important question with regards to timelines. We have the current two systems that you've indicated. When do we envisage, can we have the new modernized system in place for South Africa? And when can we find solace in terms of to say, yes, we have a new system. South Africans can be at peace. That Treasury is setting the example.
We have slide 25 in terms of the implementation approach and timelines. So they're all listed there in terms of where we want to be at in 21-22. But I must caution and quickly caution based on experiences, because I don't want to come back here and say, DG, you said you will be done and dusted in 2021. There could obviously be challenges along the way that are anticipated, and we obviously have to deal with that as and when. But this is currently what is in place, and we hope we want to achieve all of this rollout by 21-22, financial year 21-22.
All right, Professor? 3, 4 questions.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, DG and your colleagues, thank you for coming to Scopa to engage with us on this very serious issue. DG, I'd like to just chat to you about 2 things, budgeting and planning, and part of planning budgeting, and capacity. Now, am I right in saying, we'll work through this quickly, hopefully, am I right in saying that we started this process in around about 2005? Okay. Do you know what the amount was that was budgeted at that time? What was the envisaged? I don't know if you were in Treasury at that time in another position, or were you around at all, if any of your colleagues were. But what was the amount that was envisaged at that time to set up IFMS? Do you know?
I wouldn't know the exact number, but the number that informed our processes beyond 2013 after going to cabinet was 4.3 billion.
Okay, you're jumping 10 years ahead. I want to go back to 2005. When the cabinet signed this off, because, effectively I want to go to the heart of this matter. When cabinet in 2005 said, IFMS sounds like a fantastic idea, let's do it, did they have any projection at that stage as to what it was going to cost?
Can indicate if they've got the number, Chair, but I can imagine one cannot go to cabinet without showing the financial implications of what you're presenting. If we have to go back into the...
DG, I appreciate your speculation, but if you do, I'm not like my colleagues who insist that you have to answer everything. If you have colleagues here who can assist with expert information, we would like that. I think it's important for us to know what was this envisaged that we were going to spend on this thing.
All right, let's check.
That's important, Chair, very important.
Chair, would you...
Just pull the mic closer to you.
Sorry about that. No, the accounting officer is actually correct. The 4.3 billion was the amount initially touted for the rollout of IFMS up to implementation. So when we resubmitted
when you say initially, you mean 2005?
The 2005, yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
But just to add to that, even in our the latest 2013 CAB memo, we still reflected the same amount. So the intention was, even if we have changed course from IFMS 1 to 2, the budget does not change for full implementation. It must still be achieved within 4.3 billion. That is the situation as is. Unless, yeah.
I'm concerned, Chair. You just said that the budget on 2013's model is 4.3 billion. Now your colleague is saying it was 4.3 billion in 2005. Can you provide us with the cabinet memo or the documentation at that time that says 4.3 billion? Because you must remember, DG, your department is the department that works with SCOPA and other bodies to try and ensure that we have tight financial control. And so I want to be sure that this department that stands with us in doing that, in actual fact, is within its budget. Because we lament all departments all the time that they go over their budgets. So do you have, and I'm sorry that I'm less trusting, but do you have the document at that time that says that's the amount we're looking at?
Chair, one will have to check in terms of existing cabinet protocols and regulatory environment if we are able to provide that cabinet memo to the members' request. We can double check that. I'm not sure, but I'm saying if by 2013, based on the cap memo of 2013, or based on the going to cabinet, we went to cabinet with a 4.3 billion number. And I'm comfortable now that my colleagues have assisted that it is the same number that we said in 2005, and we, when we went back to cabinet, we said we will remain within the 4.3 billion budget.
Okay. Chair, I'd just like the committee to request that document, because that's going to be telling along the line. Now, okay, so
I thought you would be interested in.
I am very interested, but if they don't have the information, I don't want to argue for half an hour about it. I'd like to see that document.
No.
I know our ministers are jittery about that sort of thing at the moment. But I think if you're spending R1 billion of public financing, it's no longer a secret.
No, I'm referring to something completely different.
Okay,
but
thanks,
if in 2005 the budget was 4.3 and they've already used R1 billion, and then in 2013 they say it's 4.3,
yeah.
So it means, yeah, just that arithmetics.
No, thank you, Chair. That's a very good point. I was going to get there eventually, but thank you for highlighting it now, Chair, because it's very valid. So, we have a situation where we spent just over R1 billion, is that correct so far? Okay, and we discovered that we had a system that doesn't work. Can I ask, is there anybody in the room that was involved in the planning in 2005? Because clearly, your planning ability has failed woefully. A lot of my family are involved in construction, and they always say when you're building something, even if it's the simplest thing, assess the job. Then they say, think it through. In other words, if you want to build a wall, you see how many bricks it's going to take, how much cement it's going to take. You bring in experts if you're not a builder yourself, and you plan the thing out properly. And then you shouldn't have a wall that should cost R1,000 that suddenly costs 50,000 Rand. That shouldn't happen because you assess the job properly. So is there anyone in this room who can give us any level of indication as to whether or not this thing was planned properly? Or what level of planning was done? Yes or no, DG? Is there anybody here who can help us?
I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, there's nobody who was involved directly with the project in 2005 in the room.
Okay. DG, would you concede? I'm trying to get my head around, if you decide that you're going to spend in 2005 4.3 billion Rand worth of funds, public funds, obviously that's going to involve complexity. How is it that in your timeline here, let's just find that again. When did you discover that this thing was a problem? You do have in your timeline, I apologize, I had it here. Yeah, in 2007 you had a problem. I'm just trying to dig down into the nitty-gritty here because we need to answer these questions. How did Treasury realize they had a problem when they hadn't done any planning? Because surely when you plan a system like this, you assess the job and you say, right, we've got Persol, we've got this, we've got that, these are the problems, and you do proper planning and come up with a proper job. How is it possible? And DJ, I'm going to give you an example. If you ask me, I'm a builder, to build you a wall in 2005, and in 2007 you come, where's my wall? And I ran into challenges. You're going to say, mate, we agreed on a price of whatever to build that wall. 2 years later, you still haven't built, and you tell me you got challenges. You see, because DG, that's your money. That's what upset you. You are now presiding over something that's been dragging on for 12 years. But it's just okay. We'll just carry on spending money on it. I'm trying to drive down into who was responsible for the planning for this. Can you answer? Because then we'll move on to present, because obviously that's everyone here.
Chair, through you, it's difficult to just zoom in exactly in terms of how honorable member would like us to respond, but because I can't get exactly the question properly.
My question was, who was responsible for the planning in 2005? And were those people taken to task in 2007 when they reported back to Cabinet and said, sorry, we're very poor planners? Did anything happen? Do you know? If you don't know, that's fine. But I just want to know if any consequence management happened to those people who did the initial planning. And are any of them in the room?
No, SITA may be able to help. As I said, from our side, there was nobody who was here on this project in 2005. But all I know, some project like this would not have put SITA at the center of the planning.
Yeah, okay. Well, I hope SITA does not respond like you in relation to their members who might have been there, because the question that is asking relates to, you know that by 2007 there were problems. So fine, there were problems, but then was there anything done to those who planned in 2005? Because clearly it means there was no planning at the cost of so much. Okay, SITA, from your side, because I don't think SITA would know what happened to officials in National Treasury. They'll probably talk to what happened on their side. From SITA's side, is there anything you know that happened to those who were responsible for planning, for implementing the cabinet decision in 2005, when it was discovered 2 years later that there are challenges?
No, Chairperson, I don't know who was responsible or the nature of SITA's involvement in the planning. But it's something that we can find out and respond back.
You have not interested yourself in finding out so far since you came in?
I've interested myself in a few other things that involve SITA.
And I'm talking about IFMS?
Yes, that involved SITA and IFMS, but not who was responsible for the planning in 2005.
I thought that's where we would always start. Who were the people who were involved? But anyway.
Chair, that leads me to my next question. After spending 1 billion rand, who in this room can answer me as to what we've got? What do we have in our hands for 1 billion rand? What have we got? It's 1 billion rand.
Chair, if I may, Roger Naidu from the SITA Program Management. We have the HRM module that is implemented at TPSA, and we have the procurement module that is implemented at National Treasury. That's inclusive of asset management and catalog management.
Okay, when was the last money spent on this?
In terms of development?
How long has it been lying dormant?
It's been currently used. There's maintenance and support on that applications.
So it's currently in play?
Yes.
Okay, now the 3.3 billion rand that was agreed in, okay, the 4.3 agreed in 2005, you spent 1 billion so far. What is the remaining money going to be spent on, the 3.3 billion?
Chair, just to maybe clarify, to the 1 billion that we've been referring to was for IFMS 1. For IFMS 2 to date, as of 31st of March, we've spent 1.2 billion. So total spending on budget compared to budget of 4.3 is 2.2 billion now. So It's actually 2.1 billion that will still have to be spent if you.
Okay, that's great, thanks. Okay, so we spent 1 million on IFMS 1. Are we using IFMS 1 at all? Are we using, is that your answer?
Yes, yeah, we are currently using it, and CETA is maintaining and supporting it.
Okay, did it require a lot of upgrades because it sat dormant for a while? Did it sit dormant from 2005-7 when it was developed to 10 years later?
From 2013 onwards, since the reviews, the 3 reviews, so there was a decision to place it on a pause state, that is, do not continue any further enhancement, but rather maintain and support it for the users, current users. So there was no further investment in term.
So it was completed in 2007, and 2013 you carried on with it. Is that right? I'm trying to get, sorry, I'm being very, I'm not helping you here. I'm trying to work out, because nothing happened, because it's 6 years old, how much has that cost us in extra money? If we'd got it right first time, has that cost us anything extra? This Paul program you're talking about?
If I can give context, from 2005 and 2007, there was not, there was still requirements management and master systems plan and so forth. So actual development did not completed by 2007. By 2012, we had I would say, a working product that was implemented and is being used. So that's where the first IFMS 1 is.
Okay. So it took 12 years. Is that right? No, 7.
Cheers, yeah, from 2005 to 2000, let's say, implementation 2011, say 12, 6, 7 years.
6, 7 years. Was that the idea in 2005? That should have a working model 7 years later? Was that the plan?
Unfortunately, Chair, I was not there at the time, so
Do you
I'm hoping
think
it was a
do you
plan.
think it was the plan?
I think the plan was to have a working
Is that
system.
how you plan at CETA? Do you think, let's build something and have it ready in 7 years' time? And everybody says, fantastic.
No, Chair.
Is that how you plan?
No, not at all. We plan to ensure that we have a full implementation of a product.
So are you appalled and horrified at what's happened here?
Yes, Chair. In terms of IFMS 1, I think when we looked at the business drivers at the time, I think there were decisions made that we needed to look at a hybrid solution. We needed to take the environmental factors into place when we looked at it.
Okay. All right, now I just want to go into cost drivers. Chair, I'm sorry, I'm being naughty.
All right. All right.
Cost drivers of this, of the 4.3 billion. DG, I don't know if I'm engaged with you or CETA on this, but I see that there is quite a large chunk of cash going into CETA that we're paying. We seem to be paying a lot of money because we don't have capacity to do it ourselves. We're paying a lot of money outside because we don't have capacity. So can you comment on the capacity of CETA to handle this without using external consultants?
Chair, what slide are you looking at, sir?
I'm trying to find it, but I do remember it. There was a breakdown of the 4.3 billion.
I don't think you even needed the slide. I mean, if you are being paid, you should definitely know it.
Yeah.
And I think the question is more about the capacity of CETA to provide services without relying on external service providers. So the slide is irrelevant.
Chair, for CETA to have full-time capacity on a program of this nature, it takes, it's quite a difficult task in terms of having permanent members doing things. A program is normally where we bring people to do pieces of job and we release them of the obligation. I think CETA's role is in terms of its oversight and advisory, technical advisory that we do. So we partner with service providers in order to deliver on products and services. So to answer your question in terms of CETA's capability to manage, yes, we can manage the oversight, bringing the requisite skills in order to do the development.
Okay, how
And
many-
some of the stuff, sorry, Chair, some of the stuff we have done on our own. For example, when you look at the asset management and the ones that we said in blue on slide 18, I think. You find those are blue, the bespoke on the right under the supply chain. We have done a few of those.
All right. How many exterior consultants are we using for this? Are we ever going to get to the point where we have a CETA that has enough in-house, in-government IT personnel that have the right capacity to design this sort of architecture and put it together? Are we ever going to get there, or as you've said now, is it a stated objective to never get there? We'll always, for time immemorial, make sure we use consultants.
Chair, given the nature of the product, you know, we do intend to provide the capacity to support the architecture and design of the application.
Yeah.
Chairperson, we've just done a business model. We are going to get there. We've defined it clearly, the capability.
Well, as long as you don't do a one step forward, two steps
No,
back.
no, Chair. Yeah. In fact, we are very, very clear about the capabilities that CETA has to have internally. And we're also clear that it's capabilities that have to be delivered through external parties for a variety of reasons. So one of the capabilities that have to be delivered by CETA across all services is design and architecture and optimization work. Thank you.
Okay, why are we still not there? Why, you know, we've had many engagements with CETA. We have correctional services, there was a problem with CETA, and there's just normal problems. And CETA, there's problem, whenever, in fairness, whenever we deal with any department and we hear the acronym CETA, we all cringe a little bit, because we know it's going to be a mess. And I don't want to feel that I'm attacking you today, but I suppose I am. The point is, we need to get to the point where CETA does a proper professional job and it's fully capacitated. Why isn't it after so many years?
Chairperson, through Chair. Yeah. It's a design issue. I mean, it could have been better. The resources of CETA right now, about 60% of two-thirds of financial resources and human resources for maintenance of work and systems, and less than 5% and less than 10% respectively of the financial resources and human resources are for development. That's what has been happening throughout, and our intention right now is to change that and put more resources on development and creation of new value. I'm not sure what would have happened in over the period of CETA's existence to get to that point, but that's the reality.
Well, you
right
should
now.
know. I mean, you are the CEO. I mean, you don't become CEO and you don't look back to understand what was happening in the institution. You're just looking forward. I mean, really.
Okay. So I've done the data analysis. I know where the status is. I know what it should be in order for us to create value. But I cannot, okay.
Just a minute.
My brother, can you do us a good reflection? Because we know CETA and I know you, and he's correct, the member here, and the chair is correct, that take a few steps back, because CETA is not performing. And don't mislead us. Yes, don't mislead us. Don't think that you can't take you to task.
All right.
Please don't do that.
Okay.
And you know that we have dealt with you before. It's not the 2 day only that we have dealt with you. We've known CETA for a very long time. And it's one of the institutions that doesn't have progress. You don't make progress, sir.
All right.
Okay, if we go to slide 14, sorry, I found it eventually. Slide 14 of this presentation. Are you with me? And this comes down to the point I'm trying to make. if you look down there, slide 14, it's the cost element stability cabinet. Professional services, 1.2 billion. So we're spending 1.2 billion. Am I right that that's consultants? Persons outside of the department, outside of CETA.
I don't think it's correctly described, because it talks about configuration, implementation, and change management. So it's not the service
No.
professional.
It says professional services. What do you mean by that?
Read the preceding phrase. It says professional services.
No.
That's why he's asking the question.
When you refer to professional services, you normally refer to bringing in a professional, which obviously means that you're unprofessional. You need professionals.
That's not true, Chair.
Can someone unpack that for us?
Yeah, can you break down 1.2 billion rand? Because of the, that seems like that's a good chunk of what's still to be spent.
Thank you, Chair. The figures in this table, we derived it from a model. So the 1.2 billion was set aside for what we call a system implementer. So this is a professional services or
that's
a
fine. But
service provider.
No, that's fine. But what is professional services? Who are they? Is it CETA? Is it yourselves? Is it some consultants?
It will be what we had estimated at the time. We would use consultants to assist us in
Right,
configuring the solution.
Whatever you're going to use them, it's consultants. That's
It's
what we want.
consultants.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks. Thank you for the answer finally. So why, this comes back to what I was talking about. Why do we have to use consultants to the tune of 1.2 billion rand? That is a massive amount of money. How much have we spent so far on consultants to help CETA do their work? On this whole
Chair, through the contracts of BCX and Accenture in developing certain modules, I think we spent close to, I would say, 300 million as CETA. But that is through a contracted service. Obviously, they bring their professionals in.
Right, no, that's
yes,
fine.
okay, because you don't have the capacity inside CETA to do it. That's
In some of the,
essentially, in the cold light of day, that's what we're saying. You have to bring people in to do it.
I agree.
Yeah. So the question is, on whose watch has CETA not capacitated themselves? So we have to go and spend 1.2 billion rand. Now, you've said you spent 300 million. I'm telling you right now that you'll get to 1.2 billion rand, probably more. I'm prepared to bet you 1,000 rand right now that we'll get there, because I know government and how it works. Why don't we have the capacity? It's like Treasury hiring accountants to do the petty cash, yeah?
Chair, when I look at this slide, I look at it as these are cost elements as submitted.
No. That's not the question. The question is, why do we not have capacity? Full stop. It's not.
Acknowledged, Chair. Chair, when we manage projects, my understanding is that this is a temporary organization, which means we bring people to do a piece of job and we release them of that obligation. To have permanent people sitting within CETA to do all this work, I don't think it is a prudent way to do things. Our idea, I believe, when managing programs, is to insource the people in order to boost CETA's capacity in order to deliver. So for CETA not having these capacity, the people sitting in-house, I don't think it's a prudent way to go. So we bring the people for a piece of job when we require them, get them to do the job, and we release them. That's how we capacitate the organization.
Okay, so effectively what you're saying to me is that if you started now All right, so today is 2017, and I think the projected models DG is up to 2021, right? So you're telling me that if you were to bring people in to work in the department at a monthly salary, that between now and 2021 it would cost you 1.2 billion rand. There is no ways your salary bill is going to be 1.2 billion rand in 4 years, or even in the entire life of this project, 12 years. 1.2 billion rand for the team of people that you need to do this. Because it's not thousands of people, it's a team who could do this. But what you're doing is you're going down the road of allowing consultants to come in, put in big contracts, big markups. The guys are laughing all the way to the bank, and the taxpayer is footing the bill because CETA doesn't have the capacity to do their own work. Can you answer that? Do you really think that you would spend 1.2 billion rand on the team that you would need to develop the architecture for this properly? And if you are, I'd like to know what you're going to be paying those RT folks to come and do that work.
Mr. Chair, can I try and answer this question?
Well, I would actually have expected management, the leaders of CETA, to do so now. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. I'm just saying that it is odd because these are the people who lead the institution and are accountable, you know, for its work. But let's hear your views.
Mr. Chair, I think the analogy of the building contract was a very good analogy. I think building a project of this nature is no different to building a building. And during the phases of the building, you need different subbies, whether it's a plasterer, whether it's a joiner, whether it's a tiler. A project of this nature needs the same kind of expertise. You'll need a software engineer for a period of time. You need an implementer for a period of time. A, there's a shortage of this kind of skill in the country. B, if we try and hire them, we're going to land up with a overhead in the future that we don't need. And thirdly, we will be able to empower small SMEs and smaller companies to fulfill smaller roles within the project that will solve the bigger picture as we go through the project. So I think a project of this nature, it would be irresponsible, to be honest, to employ all these skills internally, because at the end of the day, we're going to sit with big retrenchment costs and unnecessary skills. And finally, the biggest problem is the skills aren't all available in the open market, and I think that's one of the reasons why we use small skilled boutique software houses to do different functions within this project.
All right.
Okay, thank you for that. And I fully get what you're saying about building. You've heard of a fixed term contract. You don't have to employ people permanently. You can go into a fixed term contract. And then also, is Oracle a small boutique company? 3R Technologies, are they a small boutique? And who was the other bidder? I can't remember. Their name eludes me. They put an objection in. Accenture. Are they small boutique little companies? If you're referring to helping SMMEs, then can you just tell me which small companies have benefited out of this particular deal of this amount that was awarded to Oracle in 2016? Which small startup businesses, little champions of the small man, have been helped?
My understanding is the actual software licenses is Oracle, but when we come to the implementation, and this has been my understanding going forward, that contract has not been signed yet, and that will be the SMEs and other companies that will fulfill those roles. But the core software you have to buy from the vendor. But the only contract that has been awarded, in my understanding from the audit committee, is the actual vendor license agreement.
Well, I thought you'll take advantage of that to just venture into some startup companies that have benefited in other projects. But anyway.
Okay, Chair, so what we're talking about here is we're going to spend 422 million and on licensing fees. That's for Oracle. And then annual license maintenance fee is 630. I suppose that's Oracle as well. So that's R1 billion. Right, so R1 billion with one company. I hope they've got a lot of implementing agents. So is the 1.2 billion rand going to be spent with the small businesses? Is that okay? And can you, and now, right now, so now you've told us that already you've started work on this thing. Can you give us a list of all the small businesses that you've used?
Chair, at the moment, we are entering into phase 2. We've just bought the software. So we are installing the software, and we're also looking at architecture and design.
Now, what I want to know is where's the list of the plumbers, the tilers, the joiners, the carpenters, the kitchen fitting guys, all those tradesmen in our analogy, those small businesses that are paying the school fees for kids?
We haven't gotten to them as yet. Chair.
So your previous answer that yes is incorrect.
In terms of the small SMEs, I agree, Chair.
All right, then we have a small little item of sundries for 81 million rand. That's quite a chunky amount for sundries. What is that, tea and coffee? Who put that together? I think we're back to you, DG. Sundries is a very dangerous line item because it could be anything. You could actually just cash out sundries and write slush fund. So what is that being spent on, the sundries of 81 million rand? I understand from Linda it's an estimate. Do we know where we are on that? On sundries?
Thanks, Chair. It is an estimate, as we indicated earlier, but as we indicated there, for an example, audit fees could come from the training, but we have, because we've got spend against it, both for IFMS 1 and IFMS 2, Chair, at the appropriate time we can give you the details of what exactly we spend that money on.
Right. Okay. Then finally, Sita, what are you charging Treasury for under operating expenses and hosting expenses? That's a total of about R500 million. What are you charging them for? What are you actually doing for them?
Hosting is
if we're paying all this other money to professional services and to outside people and small mom and pop businesses, what are you doing?
We are hosting, which is the server infrastructure, which I must say is already live in Maritzburg. I'm hosting the software already. And the operating expenses is the cost of personnel, which are CETA employees that are currently running that environment right now.
So you're renting the hosting space?
It's our equipment.
No, I know, but you're renting it to the department.
Yes, we're providing a service, a hosting service to them.
Okay, I suppose that's right from an accounting point of view, but one would, I don't know why interdepartmentally we're not assisting each other and actually having costs. I understand between businesses, but all right. Chair, I'm going to wind up. I've been very naughty. But you've obviously allowed me, but you are a generous chair. DG, please don't be so coy about when you're going to be finished with this and what it's going to cost. You are a man of great importance to our country. We need you to commit and say it's going to be ready then and it's going to cost so much. Because it's quite easy to say, well, it'll be finished sometimes and we'll see what it costs. We don't expect somebody of your importance, sir, to be so wishy-washy. Can you commit, please? Can you give us a commitment today that you are going to ride this violent wild horse and keep it on track and make sure that it comes in on budget or, if possible, under budget? Can you give us a commitment?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the commitment I think I can make to the committee is that we will ensure that we stretch the rent within this budget in terms of getting value for money, one, and two, making sure that every cent that's spent can be accounted for, and that we should stick to time frames. That's all I can commit for. And if need be, along the way, if I don't meet those commitments, Chair, we will inform the committee that we are having challenges here and there. But the commitment I'm making, I think, is saying that in terms of the custodians of public resource and public money, we will ensure that value for money, there's value for money in this project, and we'll ensure that we meet the deadlines, because delay can only cost more and can only not address the issues that Honorable Boy talked about around, dealing with corruption, because this essentially is attempting to bring the whole accounting, because the legal systems don't give you that integrated view of what you're spending money on.
All right. Thank you very much. Comrade Kikan.
No, thanks, Chair. Chair, there was acknowledgement that is from the DG earlier on that there were irregularities in the project. And he indicated to us that through the recommendations from the audit committee, they commissioned an audit committee. That is a forensic investigation. Now, in slide 38, I would look at bullet number 1, 2, 3, 5. You are saying the initial advert on the company that was supposed to, or that did the forensic audit, was advertised at 8:20, and it was subsequently changed to 80:20, sorry, and it was subsequently changed to 90:10. Well, what were the reasons?
And can I, because the project, the forensic project was an audit committee project. It was not the national, sort of the management process. Can I request the audit committee, internal audit, or the audit committee chair to respond to that, with your permission?
Thank you very much, DG. I think it was a scoping issue, because when we were busy with the process, it was recognized that the extent of the investigation and the amount of work that had to be done was quite sufficient. So hence the adjustment that needed us to move into the 90-10 space.
Was quite sufficient. What does that mean? The scope of the work was quite sufficient.
Yeah, so I mean the investigators were required to do things like imaging, going into people's accounts. So even in the analysis that supply chain had then suggested to us, they then mentioned that, look, it would not possibly work with the 80-20. We needed to move it into a 90-10 space so that you allow them to expand.
In the initial planning, that was not taken into consideration.
No, obviously, I mean, it was, but it was obviously also based on suggestions and support that we got from supply chain that made us change the scope.
And do we have the forensic report?
No, Chairperson, we do not have a forensic report. I mean, there is an indication on the last slide. There was a bullet that the DG was making reference to that talks about the challenges we had with this specific service provider, to the extent that initially the decision from the audit committee was that contractual obligation had to be terminated.
What are challenges? I mean, you're using this word challenges a lot, and it does not tell us anything.
Yeah, so if I were to break it down, basically there were issues of performance, Chairperson. So the service provider in
Who is the service provider?
This was Deloitte. Deloitte's Forensic was the service provider. Yeah, so the chairperson of the audit committee wants to be the one to respond, so let me give her that opportunity.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Deloitte was appointed as a service provider, and during the process, there was issues with their ethical conduct, which we identified around the 2nd of March 2017.
What is ethical conduct? Please,
there was
don't make
correspondence.
Pregnant statements. Break them down so that we know we can have details.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah. On the 2nd of March, one of the senior officials from Deloitte wrote an email to the DDG Corporate Services requesting some assurance in terms of future work. And basically the email was saying that given the work that they are currently executing, can Treasury give them guarantees or assurance that that will not hamper their future engagement in the project. As the committee, when I got that correspondence, we engaged on it, and we then took a view that they have breached their objectivity, and therefore reliance on their work cannot be trusted. That was the primary reason why, as the committee, we took a decision to terminate Deloitte's appointment. Subsequent to that process, we obviously had to engage in a settlement with them. And upon executing that process, we had to consider their final draft report, which was submitted to us on the 20th of March. And as at that time, I must indicate, Chair, that it was a time already after the correspondence that breached their objectivity. So in considering the report, the main objective was mainly to determine how much of the work that they have done they ought to be paid for. And in doing that, the committee, in assessing the work based on the scope, it was found that the work that they did and the report that was submitted was rendered inadmissible. And as a result, there is no report, and that's the reason why we have said to the committee that there is no report from the Deloitte's investigation.
No, thanks. You are saying you discovered that the report was inadmissible, but there was a settlement, and you paid them, that is some money, or they were not paid anything.
Can I clarify? Obviously, when you terminate a contract, you take into consideration the fact that work was undertaken. And we knew at the time that one of the offerings on the table from their side is for them to be compensated for the work that they have already done. So that's the process that we looked at. So given the conclusion of the assessment of the committee, we then concluded that they are not actually eligible for any payment. So no payment was actually effected to them. Thanks.
No, Chair, if that is the case, then thanks.
So was there a response from the DDG who had been sent the correspondence from Deloitte?
Chair, I must actually compliment the DDG for the high moral ground that he displayed. Upon receiving that correspondence, he basically forwarded that to the respective stakeholders, one being internal audit, and the other one being the project team itself. Okay. And that's how I got to know about the correspondence.
Thanks very much. Comrade Chula?
Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity. Not that I have many questions. I think I just have to have a follow-up on the catastrophic risk findings which were made. In slide 30, there were about 49 of them, of which 5 of them were regarded as very high risk rating. I just wanted to find out from the DG in terms of moving from the IMFS 1 into the IMFS 2, in terms of these 5 high risking rating. How are you going to deal with these issues which were raised in terms of these findings? Because for me, Chairperson, I think they are very much important moving forward in terms of wanting to implement this project. You've got to take them into cognizance. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, DG.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I must mention that these are for IFMS 2 related findings. And in particular, they were for that payment review period that is under review. So we are mentioning and noting that management has taken note of these. And if you look at slide 39, there's a bullet 3 management had in their revised comments accepted majority of the internal audit findings, and at the time we had already begun implementing all of the IA internal audit recommendations as reported. And demonstration of such actions are from slide 30 onwards right through to slide 36 in terms of all of the findings. We have taken corrective actions where necessary in terms of whether it's process, whether it's worksheets that timesheets that were not signed, or payment process, or no approvals, invoices, not all of those findings. We we have taken action, and we are demonstrating what exactly happened under each of those slides and the categories as identified.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to follow up as well on the project that has not really been successful, to say, just to check with you, DG, as the accounting officer, if there's any disciplinary measures that has been taken against any officials, any disciplinary measures, and if you have, who's that particular person?
Thank you for the question, Honourable Member. We have not taken any disciplinary measures as yet. I'm bracketing as yet, because two processes, as I indicated earlier, are unfolding. One, and I gave the reasons earlier on of time and the period, and wanting to satisfy myself that the action that I'll be taking will be an appropriate one. There is an internal process over and above what the internal audit committee picked up. I had to satisfy myself and appointed two senior DDGs who will have interviewed each and every one who one way or the other would have been related. That's one process. And secondly, the one was awaiting, and it's unfortunate that the process now for the forensic audit is going to be a while before we get the results. But with the actions and the report, draft report that I got from the two-person DDG team, one is comfortable and ready to can act. That's why I think my last bullet that I included this morning, to say, then I've got full authority and a fuller picture of what kind of reorganization, what kind of reorganization will I do or will I make on the IMFS project itself. That involves a wide ranging of issues, including what I said earlier when I was responding to Honorable Boy, that we, for instance, there is a process now, because I said there are challenges even now as we implement IMFS, and that essentially just made me stop the payment. There's pointers that then justify the actions that we have to take on key individuals, on that will help us rectify the processes, that will help us, and as I said, indicate, reorganize the project management office. So there is evidence now that will give me the authority to act in a way that I think will be appropriate, in line with recognizing that this program has got challenges, recognizing also that even the Auditor General, in terms of draft audit findings, has identified some of the challenges that really give me justification for me to can act.
All right. Okay.
Thank you for that response, DG. But maybe just want to add that maybe the DG will keep us informed in terms of that process. Chairperson, I think my last follow-up question will be to SETA. Chair, I just need to be assisted. Maybe I don't understand it correctly. Chair, I just want to get the role of SETA in terms of project management with this whole project, or in terms of your oversight. To me, sir, Chairperson, sitting here, I feel like SETA didn't do a proper oversight. So I just need to be convinced some more, so that I understand what was your role Because I think when I do the calculations, I think CETA spent almost like 280 million on IFMS 1, and which the whole project really, since it has been stopped, for me, it doesn't seem like there was value for money. So convince me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the role of CETA is shown on slide 18 of the National Treasury presentation, particularly the blue blocks.
I have seen it. Just explain it to me.
Yes,
What
yes.
is it?
So there were parts of it where CETA was doing the software development work, and then there were two parts there, which one is the financial management, and the other one is the one that is called ADE, where CETA contracted external parties to do the work. And I think what my colleague has just mentioned is that some of those modules there are working at National Treasury and DPSA, and some of them were never completed. The CETA could have done better. We could have done better and provided better leadership during that period. That's all I can say. Right now, the overall project management is with National Treasury, and we are doing what has been designated for us, which is the hosting. Thank you.
Okay. Comrade.
Chairperson, I understand CETA could have done better. What is the purpose of CETA if CETA could have done better? It means CETA doesn't do their work. It's not fair enough to say that CETA could have done better. Then it means even next year, even on this IMFS 2, you're still gonna say CETA could have done better. It's not convincing. What is it that you do? What is it that you are being paid for? Chair, maybe they might not respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they might not respond.
No, I hear you. No, it's fine, CEO. I think she's merely expressing a disappointment. You see, because to merely say CETA could have done better does not give us comfort. You know, doesn't give us comfort. Doesn't change anything. Did I see your hand up, Comrade Kuno? Yes.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I must say that I am disappointed on the way we got this presentation, or the way it was presented to us, and the way everybody has been answering. National Treasury is the key component, or should I say the key department in governance, and I don't think they're being exemplary. I'll start with the Chief Procurement Officer. He came and appeared to Scopa twice, if not more. And he really convinced us that he is doing a good job. And that's why most of the time when departments come and appear before Scopa, we will then ask them about what he advised us on. But the same Chief Procurement Officer failed to help or advise his own department. What was his role? What is the role of the Chief Procurement Officer in the procurement of IFMS? What was their input in terms of helping with the process? They could have seen that we're going to have problems going further, but they didn't. And yet they are advising other departments, and I understand from the last time that it's not only national, but they're even going provincially. So if they can make such a big mistake with R1 billion, which might sound, you know, like peanuts to you because you're dealing with billions and you think that R1 billion is not a lot of money. How does that happen, Chairperson? Thanks.
Chief Officer or the Chief Procurement Officer, were they involved in the IMFS processes?
Chair, in terms of the process, they would not have been involved in procuring services because it is the Treasury that will procure, and its own internal supply chain processes that will have rendered, will have procured all the services.
I think what she wants to find out is, was there any role they played, any advisory, any monitoring role? Since they monitor everybody.
Chair, not to the best of my knowledge, no. But what I also did as part of the investigation that satisfies me, I have requested that they should go into each and every payment of the payments that were made to check. One was to check the procurement of, the process that National Treasury undertook to secure all your BITS technologies, Apex, everyone. They are doing that work for me. Secondly, I've asked them now to check from where they sit, where this payment legitimate or not. Just as a layer that will satisfy me once all of these processes are unfolding, so that I also, from where they sit, satisfy myself that Chief Procurement Office is helping me out. So I'm awaiting that work from them.
Chairperson, the Chief Procurement Officer has got standards and procedures on how they deal with different projects. The example that, I forgot his name, Kenny Brown. He made an example of a service provider and a government doing the same thing. For instance, if a service provider wants to build a building, they can be charged 2 million rands. But when it comes to government, for the same things, same space, they will charge almost 2 billion rands. He was making that example. And he said he went to an extent of going to find out why are they doing that to government. And they said government takes long to pay. That's why they charge so much. So if the Chief Procurement Officer was involved from the beginning, because they even go, as the overseer, they check even before there's a big project in this magnitude. Before it happens, then they will be able to advise you that these people are overcharging and these ones are not overcharging. So that on slide 31, the problems that are there, excessive expenditures of 145 million for 5-year period, what you have spent there, it's a lot of money. So if the Chief Procurement Officer was involved, the one who sits in National Treasury as part of his office, if he cannot help within the National Treasury, how then can we say that that they will be able to help other departments and provinces as well? If they cannot do, the charity begins at home. Why were they not involved?
Chair, I take the honorable member's point that they should have been involved, and I also take guidance from her that the scope that I've asked them to do work on should be a bit expanded a little bit in terms of going into this project, as much as it's after the fact. But we can then at an appropriate time make that information available once they are complete with their work on this project, so that we can help me further how to strengthen the project moving forward and its implementation.
Thanks, Chairperson. Then is there any way, based on what you have answered, is there any way we can hold the IFMS 2 so that we make sure that the mistakes that happened when we procured IFMS 1, it's not repeated? Like involve everyone wherever that you are. Is it impossible to stop it, and let's make sure that processes are being followed the way they should?
Chair, I would strongly advise that we even consider stopping it, because the cost will be much bigger and much more detrimental in terms of where the process is. But what we what we need to do is to further strengthen the implementation side of the project, strengthen the oversight role that this steering committee should play on the project, and also strengthen, and Chair must be open and blunt here. I told the team a few days ago that I'm supposed to be chairing a steering committee in terms of diagram that is on page 3, slide number 3. On slide number 3, you have IMFS steering committee. And when I checked what is this, and people explained, they said I'm the chair of that committee. And then I asked, then I saw a meeting being arranged of this committee. And then I requested, in the meeting, I picked up that the last time, and because I said for 3 months, from 15th of May, when I started acting till today, there's never been a steering committee, and I guess it's 3 months. For 10 billion, for 4.3 billion or 2.2 billion, at least we should have met once at least. But then in inquiring, I found that the meeting last took place in November last year of the steering committee. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not here to, sugarcoat. There are problems. And I'm prepared, as I committed earlier to the question, to get to the bottom of this project and actually make sure that it works. Make sure that at least the 2.2 billion that we have already spent, we can get value for it, including the balance that we're going to spend in order to strengthen this. So stopping the project, honorable member, will be detrimental, and we might justify the fruitless and wasteful expenditure that we already are talking to with the AG. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. The AGSA on slide 36, the finding of the AGSA 2.3 worth of delayed payments to AGSA. I mean, I would expect this to happen in municipalities. I know that there are lots of municipalities that cannot pay Auditor General of South Africa. And the problem with a big department like you not paying AGSA, it means they won't be able to do their work. So what happened? Why was the AGSA not paid? If you can have all your Ernst and Young, which the chairperson had a concern with last week, that why is it only Ernst and Young, a company here in South Africa? Why are we always involving them? Why are you not involving others? And you find your own being not paid. What is the problem?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is one of the 54 findings, and it was unnecessary. We shouldn't have. That's why I think all management instituted was that these are being monitored on a daily basis. If you owe someone pay, at least we've got 30-day rule, and it should be to anybody that we owe, and it shouldn't be. That's why I use the word lapses. These were unnecessary in the way this finding. I mean, we should have done much better. And I think the project management office is on top of this, and I don't think it should ever happen again, that because the CFO did not sign, or the fact that the CFO must sign, because there are some findings whereby the CFO did not sign or someone did not approve. But under normal circumstances it happens, but effectively you want all clear payments to be cleared before they are made, and so these lapses, we've noted them. We've discussed them internally, and we think it's critical that we don't repeat such mistakes. And this talks to the broader role, that if Treasury is failing on these things, then this is a serious area of concern.
Yep.
Why is it difficult? It's good that the Minister of Treasury is here. Kind of which National Treasury, Minister of Finance is here. Why is it difficult for officials of government to collaborate with other departments in government? Like you heard that Deloitte, because is it Tush? Yeah, they've been contracted. You know, some of the service providers that you have contracted, you should have used our own here in government. Our own agencies that we have. Why do we rush to leave them and go and use others? Why is it a problem? Why are we overusing the service providers? And when are we going to put an end to them? These contractors, we have them year in, year out, and some of these contracts, they're unending. So it means forever we will still have these people at our back. We talk about economic transformation, Minister, every day, you know, as politicians. But we fail to do it when it comes to, you know, our own day-to-day work, implementing and making sure that we deal away with your Ernst and Young, PricewaterhouseCoopers and all those people. Because there are millions of South Africans who are not working. There are graduates who have their certificates. I remember in my constituency, somebody who had a social worker was applying to be an administrator in my constituency. That's how bad it is. And yet, you find a CEO here saying, yeah, we have these service providers. They even call them boutique. What did you say about boutique? The gentleman said boutique houses.
And you had a different concept of boutique.
Yeah, so we have boutique, you know, they have boutique skills. Why are we playing around with South Africans?
All right. All right. No, I said 3 or 4 questions so that we can, yeah.
The minister, when he comes, he will answer to that overusing of service providers.
Consultants.
Of consultants. SITA, you know, one thing good about us as members of SCOPA, we listen very carefully. And, you know, I don't know who advised you to say, yeah, we have seen it's a problem, we'll deal with that. That's the same answers that you gave when we were with Correctional Service at Old Assembly Chamber. You gave the same answers. We are not here to play. You see, we are not bored. We didn't call you because we were bored. And I think, Chairperson, we need to have SITA coming here, not SITA with Correctional Service or SITA coming with Treasury on IFMS. SITA must come here because there are lots of problems with SITA. That's why some of our departments, Chairperson, are not even using them because they cannot deliver. They are not committed at all. That's why they can answer the way that they're answering. There are millions of rands that we have used inappropriately, so you cannot even account to them. And the overuse again of service providers. What you have said here, the way you are answering some of my colleagues earlier on, you're actually saying there's nothing that you are doing.
Let's call them consultants.
The consultants.
Because service providers, it's almost as if we need services, we must go to consultants. It's a clever way of using words. Yeah, continue. These are consultants.
Chairperson, we cannot talk about capacity blanketly, so we need to qualify or quantify these capacity problems that you have. And I need to have a report on all these consultants that you have contracted to do some work for you. When are those contracts going to expire? And again, if we could have a report on your skills audit of SETA, so that we can check from the report, the skills audit, and check it as opposed to your service providers or contractors that you're having outside of your SETA. Check if we can marry them together. And looking at this, Chairperson, are we going to achieve what we have said in the NDP?
All right. I'm taking it, they are taking it as food for thought. All right, Comrade Boy, but before you, let me check the chairperson of the audit committee.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, from my side, as the chair of the oversight committee, I just wanted to echo what the DG has said. We do have challenges in this project, and I also would like to assure the committee that from an oversight point of view, out of the internal audit report, there were two processes that came out. One process was obviously intervention by management to rectify those weaknesses in the internal controls. The other process is consequence management, which is basically the forensic investigation. As far as the forensic investigation, as I've already alluded, Deloitte has been terminated. There's a new process underway. The terms of reference have been crafted and will also be expanded on the initial one to cover areas that have already been identified by the Auditor General. So from our side, Chair, we do acknowledge that there are challenges. There's also an increase in terms of specific focus from a risk assessment point of view, where from the first phases, risk was basically looked at comprehensively with other programs within Treasury. There has been a new process now whereby risk assessment or risk committee specifically focuses on IFMS projects. From the committee, we also see IFMS as a standalone, just to make sure that specific focus is put on it, just to make sure that all these areas we don't lose focus on. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. 3 questions, and then we'll move
No,
on.
no, it's my last one.
Okay.
Or 2.
Okay.
The last one will be directed to the minister.
Great.
The Oracle debug and related to licensing, how does that one work? We spend a lot of money. I hear, Honorable Tim, hearing that you are saying this project is 4 billion. But this is why, for your own benefit, sir, you better take the whole project and calculate all the monies going to the World Bank, how much would it cost us, dealing with the different entities, even what she's talking about, dealing with the auditor, what is this thing, Deloitte and Touch, and even the different, providers who became authority to themselves. It's a little bit not a good picture that the internal audit is painting. So I do hope that we'll get in detail how much it is. Minister, now this one can be answered by him. The internal audit says, besides what Tim has been trying, and I go along with him to say that it seems like in our work we'd have to get this cabinet memorandum as scope. Now what the internal audit says, it says during the review we noted that the cabinet memorandum contains the approved overall budget for the IFMS project of 4.3 billion. However, there was no supporting documentation, records or financial analysis included to justify the expenditure line items related to the 4.3 billion. Now that should be shocking, man, that cabinet in itself endorses a document of that nature and pushes money to this project. How does that happen? can cabinet guide parliament that how does it make such nature of decisions where there's no total breakdown, line items, and a project that has so much taken since 2005 up until today, and cabinet just pushes money towards that direction. What we are talking about here, 4 ministers that have presided over this particular project, 2 presidents that have presided over this particular project, but no result, no results, no consequences. Bezothi uhlengwa kukwagogo la udla imali nje kamnandi nje kuyatyiwa nje la. How can cabinet not have seen anything wrong with IFMS 1 and agreed on it and agreed on 4.3 billion with no motivation, with nothing explaining? That's why, I mean, the different service providers were just chowing. It's Christmas here. How does it happen in normal life? How does cabinet operate for itself to have arrived at such a decision? Was it so much in love with the auditor, with the Director General Fuzani, that they just sat there and they just listened and then endorsed the decision? How can cabinet allow this type of an expenditure to go unnoticed? Now we're at 4.2 billion, but nothing was written as a supporting document that how does this expenditure, I mean, like, how is it going to be happening? How can we run a government of this nature? There's something wrong with us. Maybe, Minister, you'll give us better insight. How does such decision come to cabinet? And then cabinet just says, no, 4.3 billion, how can cabinet come to such a decision? And it's quite clear that, Chairperson, it opens up the areas of interest. We can't have 4 ministers presiding over one project and they themselves not to be held accountable. Even at the stage that quite clearly 1 billion has been spent and there's no accountability. And the plan is forwarded to cabinet, nobody seems to care, you see. I like what Tim was asking. 2005, there's nobody here to account. But what I'm saying is, in government, the people who must be held accountable for this particular development. Can't be 4 ministers ignoring such a situation. This is the 4th minister, if I'm right. 3 of them are outside, are former ministers. How do we come to that type of an environment where the expenditure is not explained? We harass departments every day when they don't have a business plan. That how did you make that decision? But it's shocking. 400 and something billion has been agreed by cabinet without itself providing evidence of how that money must be spent. I would leave it to the DG because you won't be able to answer it. Maybe I'll solicit some understanding from the cabinet member that how did this happen? If it doesn't, he must refer us somewhere where we can get this. We can go to the leader of government, write a letter, ask him to be able to provide us that how does such a decision occur? And nobody cares in cabinet.
All right. That was probably a more appropriate closing question because then it pulls everything together to political responsibility and accountability. Before you respond, Comrade Minister, just a quick one from my side. And I think I would also want your reflections on it. Here it's an important program for the whole of government, national and provincial. But the way it is implemented, it is so shambolic. 1 billion rands later, you realize, no, this thing won't work. Because you had your hybrid model where you have your commercial off the shelf and you call it bespoke, which means you will customize it. And so it goes back to what Honorable Protestant asked, decision making. Well, this is about decision making. Was this just a thumb suck, which we only realize at the end that this thing won't work, or what? it's quite shocking that would come to that. With the seriousness of National Treasury and the supposed skills at SETA. I think that's bad. Well, as if that's not bad enough. Now, you create the project management office with the objective of improving project management. And look where we are. We're here simply because that project management office that was supposed to improve project management arising out of IFMS 1 has its own challenges, and you, DG, now have had to take that step of now stopping payments because it appears there is no certainty about what is happening. And you said this is a complex process, but what do? You allocate a person here, Bodever, I hope I have the surname correct, who is assigned elsewhere, and she only gives 50% of her time to the project and the other 50% of her time to her other work. To such an important and complex project coming out of a 1 billion rands failure, you want to get it right, but you allocate the head of that project, somebody who has divided focus, and somebody who, if I heard you correctly, is not an ICT specialist, nor a financial systems person. That's the person who must head that project. Just at that level, just those decisions, whoever it was who took those decisions, how does it make sense? Well, she is half there or half not there, and then what do you see? You find all these payments, because now there are no controls, no one to monitor. And what does the internal audit finds? The monitoring of costs against contracted amounts with service providers was done informally by the National Treasury team. So it was done informally. Easy. As if that was not enough, discussions were held with service providers to ensure that they were also monitoring project costs, which means consultants must now monitor themselves. They must monitor themselves. That's what it says. Now, when you go to the next page, it says, it is important to stress that due to the limited financial resources for the project, limited financial resources for the project, reliance, Comrade Minister, hope you underline that word, reliance was placed on service providers' own internal controls and quality assurance. So essentially consultants, it's a consultant's paradise. They are on their own. They can do as they please. And thus you get the findings that are in the presentation, DG, that you have made. You go to slide, can't see properly these days, slide 35, the last bullet point, an amount of 7 million paid for not clear deliverables. And Lindy is there. She's the one monitoring this thing. 7 million paid, not clear deliverables. So on what basis was this amount paid? And these things are happening in National Treasury. You know, not in the APC, in National Treasury. I don't want to give an example of a department because then it will be like I'm undermining them. But I'm saying 7 million rands later, it has been approved until pay. But they are not clear deliverables. And KPMG, they were paid amounts 2.5 million and 2.2 million, but the reports that they were supposed to do were not finalized. Lindy is there. She's monitoring this process. And KPMG is asked to do some ad hoc work with no agreement in place. It was just given. And it's interesting that with these technologies, a service level agreement at the tune of 39 million was signed, when it was actually supposed to be 28 million. Now the question is, who signed that SLA? Fine, it was cancelled, but what happened to the official who signed that SLA? You know, I do know that Biz Technologies, trading as Abacus, has captured treasure. If we're talking state capture in other entities, this one has been there at National Treasury for more than 10 years and getting contracts left, right, and center. And here they are. They're supposed to get a contract of 28 million and then somebody signs it at 39 million. So it's fine, it was cancelled. But who is that official? What has happened to that official? But what does that mean? How many other such SLAs have been signed? Because then I think from this side, we're starting to be worried now. If this happened with IMFS project, what other many projects within National Treasury suffer this kind of lapses, if one may use that word? When you go to slide 32, okay, let me leave that one. You know, I think if you go back to to all those findings, then one thing that comes through is that payment was made without looking at the work that has been done, or contracts were not in place, or service level agreement deliverables were not there, timesheets to justify amounts were not there. And I'm just saying, DG, if this was an important project which has just emerged from the embarrassment of not coming through, you would have expected that it would be handled much, much differently. And you said there are only 5 officials from National Treasury. Now, if you have a project of that magnitude, of that importance, and then you allocate 5 people, then the conclusion I can come to is that then the rest are consultants. And as such, then they just do as they please. So where are we? I think taking us back to where Comrade Boy was, that Comrade Minister, how do we say that not just National Treasury, but that government actually takes this project seriously? How do we say that? What evidence is there beside what is on paper at the level of implementation? So, DG, you are settled with this hot potato. It's on your laps now. And you are the one who must make the important decisions going forward. Clearly, you have been brought here, spend the whole afternoon, because Lindy here has been unable to do a job. But maybe she can't be blamed. She's not an IT specialist nor a financial systems person. Somebody has put her there, and that's it. I think, and I'm sure comrades here can make their own, but I'm sure that overall, as we round it off, we're left more with a sense that it's like uyadlalwa. We're not serious. I just don't get it. From the first one, where decisions were made, right up to where we are now. I would want to give the minister to to respond, but I see, Ross, you have...
Thank you, Chair. Just in closing, just a very small remark with regards to the responsibility of the procurement officer dealing with these massive contracts in terms of the financial implications and also the amounts that we've dealt with. I think as a SCOPA committee, we should really engage with the procurement office as well, because there was a huge responsibility in the procurement office to also look into these contracts that was not properly concluded. Thank you for the time.
Okay. All right. Comrade Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to the members of the committee for a really robust engagement on this project. I think SCOPA does our constitution a great service, and I think the attention you pay to the detail of the report submitted without sounding flattering or condescending actually justifies the high offices you occupy in our public institutions. We are the better because of that engagement, because you point us to the direction at which towards which we need to move. Let me start, Chairperson, by saying we are here because of two reasons. On the one hand, it's the failure of internal controls and accountability with regard to this project. But on the other hand, it's the robustness of our internal audit, which uncovered these problems and put them to the fore. I think we need to pay due credit to the internal audit executive and the internal audit committee for their steadfastness, their independence in raising these issues and refusing to do anything other than pointing to the weaknesses in the system and ensuring that necessary action is taken to address the matters that we now are settled with. I certainly am giving my attention to the report and the issues which have been raised in the report of the Internal Audit Executive and the Audit Committee. I have had several meetings with them, as well as with the Director General, to address these matters. Hence the interventions that the Director General referred to earlier, which include appointing to act somebody with requisite skill and who would be able to dedicate 100% of the time to the IFMS program, the suspension of all payments until we are satisfied that the internal controls have been properly established. We will pay attention to the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer to ensure that it plays the role it has to play in relation to this and other projects. We will ensure that as soon as possible we find a permanent person to head the IFMS project, and we will also ensure that as speedily as possible the forensic investigation is instituted so that we can get to the bottom of the matters before us arising from the report. The question will always arise with regard to the conduct of Deloitte, and quite evidently we need to pay attention to that. I have directed the Director General to write to the Independent Regulatory Board of Auditors to report this matter officially and request IRPA to institute an inquiry as to whether the conduct of Deloitte was actually consistent with professional conduct required of an audit firm. Given the email which they sent to the DDG Corporate Service and the report which they submitted and the grounds on which that report has been wholly rejected, with a resolution on our part that we are not going to pay for such a shoddy work because we believe they could have done a better job. And I think what compromised the work they did was the mere fact that they sought that assurance, that guarantee that we must give them that they will in future get business from the Treasury. So all of those, and perhaps more, I think arising from the forensic investigation, it is my understanding that the Hawks have also communicated to the DG that they are investigating the aspects of this matter. And arising out of all of that, there will therefore be requisite action against anybody who may be found to have acted wrongfully. But just to comment briefly on a few things, and I will not be long, Chairperson. It is our intention to get to the bottom of this matter. I think there is no doubt about it. We apologize for where we have failed, I think, to answer adequately to the committee. And we will act with urgency to get to the bottom of the matter. There clearly was a failure of internal controls and accounting responsibilities in regard to this. And we are going to re-establish those internal controls and ensure that there are relevant structures and people to account for the work that has to be done by in relation to the IFMS, because it remains an important project to be done. Now, when cabinet memoranda are submitted to cabinet, they don't come with detailed project plans because cabinet takes an executive decision. Such detailed project plans would have been submitted to relevant DG's committees. They would have gone through them and approved them. And so cabinet takes executive decisions. Sufficient information is provided to cabinet. And so the cabinet itself, yes, will have been provided with a detailed memo, but it would not have received a very detailed supporting documentation in the form of a project plan that explains how the project is going to unfold right up to implementation and conclusion. And that's why the accounting officers, who are the directors general of the respective institutions, are the ones ultimately who account for the projects that are being implemented. And so we at Treasury take responsibility for any lapses which have happened in this regard, and as I have indicated, we promise to get to the bottom of the matter, so that where there are resources which have been lost and need to be recovered, they can be recovered. And where anybody needs to be acted against, relevant legal action is undertaken. But I want to say, Chairperson, all of what happened notwithstanding, it must not erode the trust and the integrity of the nation in the National Treasury as an institution. Because this was one lapse in an institution that manages a whole range of very huge programs and finances of the state. Yes, one will put a dent on the trust, but overall, the Treasury does its work to the best of its ability, supported by very well-skilled public officials who every day try their very best to serve the nation with everything that they've got. It is important that the National Treasury continues to role model competent, prudent program management and financial management, as well as accountability. And this is precisely why we should take this program very, very seriously. To learn what has happened from this program, to correct the mistakes, ensure that they do not happen again in the future. There was a question asked about the continued use of consultants. And it's a matter that over time we are going to overcome. Because there are areas by whose nature you would find you need to have more consultants, because the service or the function offered there is perhaps seasonal, and therefore you don't need a permanent capacity, or for a variety of reasons. But it is important for us that we continue to reduce government's reliance on consultants and rely more on our permanent capacity. Now, you have then a dilemma which goes hand in hand with the allocation of work in government, institutions, and society in general. Why certain institutions would seem to get more work from government and other private institutions than others. 96% of South Africa's audit market is dominated by 4 firms. And all 4 of them are multinational. And only 4% of the audit market is occupied by South African homegrown black audit firms. And some of these, in the 96%, have up to 120-year contracts. I fail to believe that I can remain independent and give you an independent audit if I have a 120-year contract with you. And that is why the Independent Regulatory Board for Auditors came up with the report they produced last year, as part of which they recommended the mandatory audit firm rotation principle, so that we try to introduce that principle of audit firm rotation among businesses in South Africa to give all firms a chance. This was introduced at Transnet with great success. For the first time, you saw around 2011 the emergence of at least 3 big black firms, Sizwe Nsaluba Gobodo, Nkonki, as well as Sikela Xabisa. But unless we introduce these, because it becomes a vicious cycle, you don't give them work, they can't hire more chartered accountants and forensic auditors, they therefore can't get work because they don't have capacity, and therefore it just becomes a vicious cycle. But you can reverse the cycle by giving them work so that they can hire more capacity, so that they can participate in these spaces which are ordinarily not occupied by black and female-owned firms. And that is why the entire concept of procurement strategy in government ought to be reimagined so that it doesn't only relate to the procurement of goods, but it also relates to the procurement of services such as audit services, legal services, and other professional services. And that is where you are able to inject change directly in the economy and effect that economic transformation that brings new players into the party. That must be done not just to increase the numbers of black consultants, but to increase the opportunities for black firms to even obtain business in the private sector. Because the more government can demonstrate confidence in these firms, the more they can deliver to government, the more all other firms, including private firms, can have confidence in the services they provide and can procure their services. So we have a responsibility. And I think the entire Treasury, therefore, in relation to the IFMS, needs to bring together a comprehensive response to how we are going to address the matters that have been raised as a result of the IFMS, in such a manner that we can continue to reap the benefits of the project, of the system, at the same time as we eliminate the slippages and the weaknesses in the system that have created the problems that we are now saddled with. It must be the responsibility ultimately of the executive authority and the accounting general. So the buck stops with me. And I take full responsibility for what has to happen in order to ensure that the problems that are here are properly addressed. I have received the DG's full commitment to also taking decisive measures to addressing these. And we will do that. I hope we will not come back to Scopa again to face the grilling we face today as a result of these reports, and that in the future we should be able to report to you the decisive steps we have taken in order to address this. You have requested some more additional information on certain things, including on what was the original cost submitted to Cabinet in 2002 when the project was approved, and other information, additional information you have requested, we will submit that information as a follow-up, and we'll update the committee on the additional steps that we are taking in order to address the weaknesses which have been identified. I must, in conclusion, Chairperson, thank both the committee, but also thank our internal audit mechanisms. I must thank them again. I think they have done what is expected of them. They swept nothing under the carpet. They put everything to the fore. We are sitting here because of the work they did. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks very much, Comrade Minister. Well, we want to thank you and the DG. We're getting worried that it appeared as if we're not getting time. Actually, fate had conspired that we should not meet even this week because of activities here in Parliament, but thankfully the Speaker's office was able to grant us a deviation from, so to speak, that we meet. DG, I think some of the information that we have requested, check on them, and once your forensic audit work has been done and you've decided what to do in relation to its recommendation, I'm sure we can have another engagement that should assist to then clear everything in terms of what must have happened. Thanks to the internal audit team as well. I mean, you know, when I was reading the letter written by the chairperson of the audit committee, I was very impressed with the substance and the quality in which it was written. That is what we want, and that is what we expect from National Treasury all the time. Comrades, tomorrow it's South African Express. Ross, Kekane, you are the two comrades who are responsible for taking us through. DG, I received your report on the 30 days payment. I think we may decide whether maybe we need an engagement so you can come and take us through. That time it will not be like this. You will be our friend, because we'll be plotting with you to identify those who are doing wrong and then call them. I think we also have you on deviations. We're just trying to sort out one or two things around dates, because some problem arose with one, I think the SIU. So we're trying to see if we can bring you a bit earlier on that particular day, but I think Ntombi and Ben will liaise with you. On deviations in government, just a broad picture of how your colleagues and other officials are able to say, here is a tender of 20 million, but then it later on becomes 40 million and meander around and all that kind of stuff. We want to have a complete picture so that we can do our work appropriately. Comrades, thanks very much. Thanks very much.